if Natalie would like to do it this time, because you are our leader.
I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to. We are, up here on the front of the screen, you have the memo that's attached to the agenda item. Essentially, we have worked through the focus areas, and we got all the way through implementation strategy 4-23 the last time that we were together last week. And that is in guiding principle for transportation. So that's where we're going to start today's discussion off. It is my hope that we can make it through the remainder of the implementation strategies today. So if possible, if we could stay focused and try to get through the rest of them today, I think that would be to our benefit.
I'll agree with that because I have an appointment at 6:30.
6:30.
We'll be out of here by then.
Yeah.
We will be out of here by then.
I'm trying to be an optimist here.
Last one, it's a little later.
And then if there's time at the end, I'd like for us to talk about kind of next steps and kind of how I could foresee or recommend we proceed kind of from here for next week. So if you are following along in your comprehensive plan as well as your strategies, again, we're going to start on 4-23, which is enhancing transportation system safety. So we've made it to page 145 in the plan document.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I have a mouse that does not work. Paper?
It's working.
All right, let me see if I can do it, Beth. Oh, you do have to actually pick it up off the table. Okay. Darren, thank you. All right, we're going to go to strategy 423. And I do want to point out something on, if I can get this maximized for you a little bit. I do want to point out that I have updated the attachment to the agenda item to reflect our discussion last week. And what is in that agenda item and what was printed and placed at your tables, everything before strategy 423 has been updated to reflect last week's discussions, okay? So you'll notice a little bit of change in the format there. So if council agreed to modify a strategy, for example, Western Connector, there's the language that's based on what I thought I heard you say in the meeting last week. And then I've also identified whether the strategy was added, modified, retained, deleted, or combined. So if you're scrolling down and you get to strategy 424, you'll see there's nothing in there yet because we have not discussed it. Okay?
You say get through all the initiatives today. We're talking about getting through the wording
Correct.
and not the prioritization of them.
Correct. No prioritization
Okay.
today. Okay? All right, so we're going to start on 424, which is enhancing transportation system safety. And the recommendation here was to consider becoming an NC Vision community, NC Vision Zero community. And you can see management's recommendation was to potentially remove this entire section on transportation safety. What council comments are there on that?
Agree. Agree.
Agreed?
Well, I mean, this is in any conditional or permitting process that is handled by our Plan and Zoning Committee, making sure that there's good sight lines and stuff like that for safety. So, yeah, I'm just agreeing, but I'm just saying that aren't we looking at this stuff at project by project?
That's not how I took it.
Yeah, so if you're looking on page 145, the discussion here is all about the safety of our transportation system in terms of primarily vehicle crashes and pedestrian safety around the school area, which we don't have a lot of. I mean, we have we have a lot of accidents at the circle, but they're fender benders, they're not,
10 to 20 year out, though. I'm looking 10 to 20 year out. I'm just trying to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we're covered there. And then there's one where there's just education with a grant. You can get a grant.
correct, and we do that right now today.
That right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, all the bike to school, walk to school, our Parks and Recreation Department, that's kind of like a day-to-day operation kind of thing for us.
I just think this NC Vision Zero is not relevant to our community at this time and really for the foreseeable future.
We have very few fatalities from car accidents in Pinehurst. Okay? All right, so you're okay with that one? We will, all right, we will move on to the next section, which, so actually, that was reducing crashes. There you can see in pedestrian safety for students, we just said, consider, continue to work with them. So if you're okay with that, we'll leave.
Yep.
Standard operating
It
procedure.
is standard operating procedure. It's just to keep doing what you're doing. So if you're okay with that, we'll leave 425 in. 426, continue to implement strategies related to children and school transportation. In our opinion, that's really covered under implement the comprehensive pedestrian plan in other places. So I would recommend also deleting 426 because it's covered. And then the same things for 427, we feel like
So
that's,
I'll agree with that.
you will agree with that? Okay.
A thumbs up thing.
You want to do thumbs up?
Thumbs up, then we don't even have to bother with our mics.
All right, let's do that.
And nobody will know what we said.
Okay, 427 we think's covered in the other one, so that's a thumbs down? Thumbs down as in keep it, or thumbs up as in you agree to delete it?
Thumbs up, we agree to delete it.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And then pursue grants, do you want to retain that one?
Yeah, I would
Agree. Thumbs
Okay.
up.
I want to keep pursuing grants.
Procedure, right?
Yeah.
It is. Okay. I have a note in there, participate in National Bike to School Day. We do that already, so I don't necessarily think we need to have a separate recommendation for that. So I think we can remove that. All right, now to the fun topic of,
You had something you wanted to add.
yeah, National Bike to School Day. It's, in reflecting upon it, it's something that we do right now.
Standard
It's just
operating
continue to
procedure. Okay.
participate, yeah. So
Okay.
I don't think we need a separate recommendation for it. And now we're going to talk parking. Okay. So the consultants in the draft plan have taken parking and put it in a couple of different sections. So they've specifically identified a strategy for residential areas, parking in the village center, hospital district, and in mixed-use development areas. And so now we are on recommendation number 429. And you can see management's proposing some revisions to that wording to consider amending the zoning to require parking to be located in the rear of buildings in mixed-use and conservation neighborhoods.
Does the PDO, or is it just really the HPC guidelines that say side load garages are preferred?
HPC guidelines say side loads preferred. The Pinehurst South Overlay District requires parking to be in the rear. But you can, that's the only other place I believe right now that parking's identified as a specific location.
If we did that as a preferred way, and there was some impossibility because of the structure, is there a way for us to, variance it? Even
Yeah.
It was
Did you know-
standard operating procedure, but I have to say, there'll be situations
Yes.
where
Is it lots too narrow?
could
whatever?
not happen, and I just don't want to be, that
Right.
person. But I think it's a good goal.
Well, in
What's the rationale for parking in the rear?
So if you read the context of, and it's because this thing is the basket weave, the actual real, I think, meat of the description is probably in another section. But the intent is that, especially in these mixed-use neighborhoods and conservation areas, that's primarily where this is intended to be. So you could argue that this should actually be sitting under parking and mixed-use development areas section. is that you want to have visual interest when you're walking in a pedestrian-friendly location, and you want the architecture and the building to be up front to get that interest as opposed to parking lots and asphalt.
Got it, thank you.
Are you okay with the language we have there for
And when you say
429?
zoning, you really mean PDO.
PDO, correct.
Maybe let's
Would
just
you
say that.
prefer us to clarify that in every instance and say amending
it-
the PDO?
If it's, that's where it
Okay.
is, then
Yeah,
we should
we
do
can do
that,
that.
so it's clear.
Yeah, we can do that.
A thumbs up for the
Thumbs up
station,
for,
and a thumbs up for Judy's recommendation, too.
okay. All right, now we're going to the village center. They have a couple of recommendations here, and as you can see, there's one recommendation in here, 432, which was a top vote getter from our residents. Again, the total number of votes I consolidated on the spreadsheet for both Open House and Envision the Village online. So you can see that in this section.
Relative to 430 and 431, which all both discuss parking in front of the department store essentially. Number one, as you may or may not remember, I'm sure you do, that it was one of 5 elements that was put together in 2012 when we redid Tufts Park.
I do remember.
And it was not done for a number of reasons. One of them may have been that we don't own all that property.
Correct.
Number two, the proposal may have been at that time to move the parking, diagonal parking back out on Chinquapin and Cherokee, which is a very crowded area in that it kind of comes together very closely in those areas, plus we'd lose significant trees there. And it was rejected for that reason. And if you, in fact, did it without the parking, moving the parking, then you lose a lot of parking places. In addition, in my opinion, that this, if done, if we actually did this, this could be reason for the NPS, the National Park Service, to withdraw the landmark status all by itself. And this doesn't seem like the kind of thing we want to lose the National Park Service designation on. Other things maybe, but not so much this one.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought that the intent was that not to be parking in the original plan
That again?
in front of the Village of Delhi, right? So the original, I don't know, maybe
What are you
I'm
talking
wrong.
about, original what?
The Tufts
Olmsted plan.
Homestead plan had nothing, yeah, there was, well, when Homestead, there
parking.
was no cars during
I know, but
Homestead's
I
plan.
mean, that was a green space. So I'm just trying to, I'm just
It was-
pushing
no,
back on the,
no, I
it
think
might be
you-
more historically valid as a green space than
I
as a parking
think
space.
actually it was places where Conestoga wagons pulled up in front
Right,
of the
right.
department
Yes,
store.
they did.
So
Yeah.
it was always sort of a delivery
Yeah.
parking area.
But not that, I get that front part was green space. I agree there might have been a pass-through, but I don't know. I'm just trying to.
Natalie,
Well,
you're
what I-
not facilitating.
Say that again?
I said, Natalie, you're not facilitating.
Okay. I'm
I have a-
allowing.
Yeah.
We don't own it.
I'm
That's
sorry.
the biggest, I think the biggest barrier is we don't own it. So I think it's,
Let me just talk kind of in a broad term perspective about parking in the village center in terms of their recommendations, and there's a couple here. First of all, this recommendation currently, or originally was worded, removing the village green parking lot. And so at the open house, they said, did you really mean the Tufts parking lot when you said village green parking lot? And they said, oh, no, that's not what we meant. They said what they meant was the, in front of the department store building. So,
Those two people? Got 2 votes here.
No, the,
correct.
That's what she's
No, the consultants did not,
Okay.
they caused confusion by their wording.
I would recommend that you delete both these. I don't think they're practical at this time.
I
Okay.
agree.
yeah,
Delete,
please,
give me a
delete.
thumbs up if you want to see these gone.
I remember it being greener. There used to be plants all along there, and I think there's a hybrid. I guess we got yes or no is not always the best way to go.
So,
I
Kevin,
think
4-
a greening of that area would be better.
So 431 is really saying, we could modify that to say, consider adding landscaping and greening
Because
it
they
a little bit.
bricked over where all the flower beds were there. They're bricked
Correct.
over. I mean, there was massive vegetation.
There
and
was.
plants, and trees even. So I just think that we're making a mistake if we think we got to say yes or no.
So are we,
Okay.
so we're talking about the area in front of a, say, the Gentleman's Corner?
Correct.
Department store.
It was much
Just making that a
greener,
little greener
much greener 20 years
is
ago
what
than it is
recommendation
today.
431 is, adding landscaping
I
and
agree
streetscape
fundamentally
improvements.
with, you know, I fundamentally agree with you guys.
I would
but
say
just
this
don't-
belongs in the beautification committee.
Yeah, I know. I just think that the village needs to be greened back up. And any way we could use carrots and not, this is a stick. I'd rather use a carrot in some way to.
Okay?
I would rather delete it and altogether, and if the beautification committee has talked about this before, and we've talked about with other businesses in the area about what individually they can do by businesses to enhance their commercial frontage, I think that'd be a better place for it.
Right.
Okay, all right. I think I have consensus, not full agreement, but some consensus to remove 430 and 31.
Right.
432 is continue to encourage employees to park off-street rather than on-street parking spaces. We do this every month in an e-news. We've tried multiple approaches to this over the past, and so this is, I think, intentionally general recommendation.
I think it's job one. I think it's the most important thing we need to do right now.
Parking
because
downtown.
get businesses, because I brought it up, we had a little meeting on a small issue in the village, Judy was there. They shushed me, I wasn't allowed to talk about it. I got shushed, and remember how when I brought up, well, can we talk about having your employees park in the sandlot, not for, it's just, we have to hammer this home.
Okay.
It's not in their interest to park in front of their business.
So it's a priority for Kevin. What about the other council members? Retain?
Retain,
We're talking
because
about
it is a priority.
4-32, is that correct?
4-32.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think you retain it.
Okay?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of reasons to park in front of your business, unloading, I mean, so, you know, I'm not trying to,
Right.
talking
Right.
reasonable.
Okay. 433, 34, and 35, management did not make any recommendations to change or modify those. And that is coordinate with the resort for transportation services and strategic parking plans during special events. There was a lot of discussion about the overflow of parking, especially during special events. And are there alternatives to park in remote lots and bring people into the village center when we have those large events?
Yeah, we brought it up in the last event that we approved, so, I mean, it's pretty consistent with what.
If we were going to talk about providing shuttle service to transport attendees to and from events, who's going to provide the service and what would be the cost?
So
Ability.
Parks and Recreation has done that in the past. We've had golf cart shuttles from Village Hall as well as using our recreation van. But this recommendation specifically is to see if there are options to also partner with the resort for them to provide some of those shuttle services.
You're talking about 433.
I'm on 433.
Cost sharing or have them provided?
It doesn't say, it just, I mean, it would have to be worked out.
I thought it was more to have the discussion. It's possible it would not be accomplished, but I don't think having discussion is a bad idea.
I think it could be discussed.
Okay, discuss.
As a standard operating procedure kind of thing.
Okay.
Little tighter weave of, you know, trying to partner with the resort on stuff that we have, you know, specific.
Yeah, I don't know if, in the evenings, they've got a lot of parking over at the clubhouse if they don't have an event going on that could be, it's close proximity, that could be an easy drop-off location.
I mean, when
So-
they have too much going on at the Carolina and they have a big event in there, they ask members to park up in the members lot and they shuttle us
Right.
over.
Right,
so.
right.
I think it would mean an event that would positively impact the resort. I think they'd be willing to participate. If it's one that's small,
It's a good
that
point.
doesn't impact the resort,
Yep, it's a good
I don't
point.
believe they would.
Okay.
Jack, would this be anything that would be a factor in the effort you're looking at for parking?
Yeah, well, I was going to mention that. It isn't, I don't think it's necessary to put, that particular issue the way, right, the overflow from the hotel, for example. I don't think we can phrase that, and nor is it appropriate, I don't think, in this plan. However, I do feel that it may be, I would like to see some statement relative to when we do have events, that we provide a little more structured direction to people attending the events as to where to
4:35.
go, where to park, and maybe transportation services to and from the event. It isn't really addressed in my mind.
4-35, did you read that?
It isn't strong enough, in my opinion.
I'd like you to strengthen it. Strengthen it the way you see fit, Jack.
It says advertising of this, you know.
Okay, I can
I would like to,
strengthen that language.
investigate that,
Yeah.
that I think is necessary. And
Okay.
I think a lot of people in the
I agree
village
with you.
agree with that.
Strengthen that.
So what I heard
Make
was,
a recommendation?
I think Jack has reworded it, haven't you?
Well,
Reworded it in
I
your
probably
copy?
stated it, I can never state it again, of course.
Yeah,
But
it's hard. You gotta have a reporter on.
something to the effect of, you know, that we should investigate enhancing or enhance the traffic direction and/or parking situation relative to special events. I
I'll
forgot.
work on it.
Yeah,
It's probably on the tape.
Not to make this complex, but I think if it's not easy to park remotely, they're going to continue to park there. So I
Well, and
think
also
the-
you need to provide direction
It has to
and
be.
services
So
to and from
it
the
has
event.
to be a better way to go somehow for the
Mm-hmm.
people. You got to kind of,
The communications is critical if you have out-of-town folks coming in. The inclination is,
Right.
heck, I'm going to park in the first place I can find, whether it's a pine straw and next to the
Right.
fence, and I'm going to walk over. That's the inclination that people have. So the key would have to be, I think, in communications and a communication plan, with good directions. All of that would have to fit into it.
Okay.
Right, there's a bit of coordination and
What
effort
435
involved in this.
says?
Well, I'm just saying, here's what's required if this is going to be if we're going to implement something and we can measure it and we can see if it's going to be effective. What are the factors that would have to be? That's what I would say.
Yeah.
you're looking for the exact words to add
Well,
to 435, and we
yeah.
haven't figured it out.
And I think I can reword it. I think what I hear you saying is for 435 is, and it really is in the wording, as Jeff mentioned in 435. It's how do you increase ridership in these shuttle services? Like, what are the things that you need to do?
Well, more than that,
to
not
get-
just ridership, I think we need to provide
It's
direction and parking.
Right.
To
Yeah.
attendees of special events, we need to provide better guidance
Event-
as to
event
where to go
parking.
and where to park.
I think
Event
those are the-
parking is just like going to the,
That's what it says.
It is what it says, but we'll reword it.
Good,
Okay.
No, I'm
didn't-
wrestling
I
with
didn't-
how to
I'd say it
improve this
better.
language
Yeah,
to meet your
I
intent.
thought
I
it did
don't,
too, but I welcome any
So let me,
clarification.
while y'all are thinking of creative ways there, let me go the other way on this.
Yeah.
One of my concerns is that we close down the streets too early. When we have Live After 5, or we take up a parking space in front of the Holly to put the green corridor things, you know, a day ahead of something that we're going to take off the next morning for, you know, like the 4th of July parade. So
It does say that, you're right, Jeff, but it doesn't say it very strongly.
Yeah.
Maybe some minor wording there would be fine. I think you addressed the issue, and you know where I'm coming from on it thing.
Maybe it could be fixed by prioritizing, Jack. Maybe it's, the wording's right, and you want it prioritized.
Switch the
Yeah.
order of the sentence,
Yeah,
first listed.
yeah.
or make it a separate recommendation.
When we prioritize, maybe we could put that near the top.
I think, Judy, I think you're right, because I've heard comments from the Pinecrest Inn that the street's closed down it's closed down too soon, and some of the businesses in town would like to see it open. So I think it's a matter of coordination with the staff about what's required to be sure that
please.
preparation is done appropriately and effectively to put on the event, as well as to manage the expectations of our neighbors on the street, as well as businesses.
I mean, I get that, you know, there's a lot of logistics, but shutting it down at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for a 5 o'clock event, you know, that seems early.
Only way to get it done. No other way to get it done.
Because
Right.
people will be piling,
Yeah,
no,
that's how you
Up
make-
to the police.
If you can just
Yep.
double check that and make sure that it incorporates those thoughts, that's
Okay.
all I'm coming,
I'm happy
that's
to
where I'm
do
coming
that.
from.
Madam Moderator, I
Yep.
want to apologize for this, but, you know, it says here in the written report, not in these goals, it says, if it is undesirable, on the previous thing about the parking area, if it is undesirable or impractical, remove the village green park, the parking in front of the deli, which we all agree is impractical. Improve the lot by adding landscaping, lighting, and streetscape rooms to increase its So, I mean, it's kind of in there in the bigger document to
It is.
improve it landscaping wise. And-
That's 431.
Yeah, that's recommendation 431.
Okay, thank you for.
But you all recommended deleting that one as well, so.
Correct. Not full agreement, but consensus.
Well, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm more at that in the re-greening of the village, so
Well,
I'm
I
very
think,
passionate about that.
but I think we have a beautification committee.
I don't think that we should kick the can down the road to our committees all the time. We should lead. So I have a
Well-
little problem with that.
We'll have a council member on the, or two council members sit on the beautification committee right now, Judy and I do, so we're talking about leadership from the council, elected officials from the council who sit there along with Molly Roll.
I got on the record. You can
So
go
I
on.
think maybe, Kevin, one way to address this is when we get to taking care of business and we're talking about the village center specifically, maybe we just look and see if there's an opportunity to talk about re-greening the village center, because I think there's a specific recommendation in that section about Market Square as well.
Market
So,
Square as well.
Yeah.
What if that language said consider instead of do it?
Would that keep you guys more comfortable? Because I'm not comfortable with, that's a big idea, in my opinion. I guess it seems like a small idea to people, but it's a big idea to have.
But it doesn't go in parking. It actually goes in a different
I'm
section.
okay with that.
I'm going to move it
I'm
to.
okay with that. Thank you.
Would council be okay with something like consider, greening the village center, or additional plantings in the village center?
Well, I'll go beyond that. I would say, consider all the streets in the village as to whether or not we've lost control and we may need to regreen a number of them.
And we'll get to that in the.
Not
in
just-
I know
the-
we will, yeah.
in the
I was
next-
focused on Village Center because all the stuff that's dead since I remember, there's a lot of stuff trees that are dying or in trouble or things
Well, we
like that.
replanted, there's some areas that have been replanted. I mean, I know they've bricked over that, but that's been years.
I think she's got it. I'm
I got
just
it.
saying, that's why I was talking about Village Center a little bit.
Okay. All right, moving on, if you don't mind, to parking in the hospital district. Our note here is consider removing this. Our PDO allows parking decks in the hospital district by right. However, in the focus area, we did agree to potentially allow higher parking structures, so it might be appropriate to include that language here.
I think we can remove it.
Remove it?
Kind of redundant.
It's redundant, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody in the know would know it's allowable,
Well, we would have to amend the zoning or PDO.
Well, I'd agree with
To
that.
allow, we would have to amend the PDO to allow parking structures higher potentially than what's currently allowed if we implement the focus area, if it's
We're going
developed
to be
according
changing
to
the
the
PDO on
focus.
a lot of things, so that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think in your description
Make
of
a
the
list,
hospital
Darren.
district, just add that in
Okay,
as a consideration.
all right, we'll
It
delete
Probably
it.
doesn't belong here.
Okay. Parking and, do I have thumbs up from everyone on that? I think I did.
There was
Okay.
a shared parking
Okay.
point.
And that's parking in mixed-use development areas, so now we're on recommendation 4-37, which is to consider shared parking strategies in mixed-use areas that have inverted parking patterns.
But tell me where those are.
I think one of them was the project that we said no to, the medical building that was going to be built, and that was going to be used as overflow for the brewery. So that's the best example I could tell you.
Natalie,
of reality.
Yes, so
what's your definition of these, please?
So the mixed-use areas that are the focus areas that our mixed-use areas are downtown. It would be Village Place, Rattlesnake Trail corridor. So if that were developed in a way that might have potentially some inverted parking patterns to allow for shared parking, as well as the Highway 5 commercial area is another mixed-use area. It would also apply to conservation neighborhoods if those were ever developed out in the ETJ. So it would be all three of those areas.
Daytime businesses and nighttime businesses?
That's a good way to explain it.
It is.
Right.
Yes.
I'm a little bit
Bad.
bothered by this recommendation for two reasons. I think that inverted parking is a good argument in favor of mixed use, but that's not what this says. And on its face, I think the recommendation, if it were implemented, would encourage us to cut corners on required parking in mixed-use
Yeah, that's not the
development
intent.
areas because we can say that
Right.
it's inverted. I mean, I don't
Fix
think
it,
we want to do
Jeff?
that.
Can you fix it? Can you fix this?
I think we just
They have
take
to
it out,
require it.
delete it.
Well, how about this? Somehow, and I don't know how you do it, you encourage understanding that when you're involved with improving a mixed-use development. You just have an understanding,
Yeah, I was
not make it
gonna-
a rule of thumb. It's- yeah,
Darren, do you have any experience with inverted parking?
I hear his issue. His
Conditional use
issue is
permit.
it will become the norm and not, you won't have to supply as much parking. I agree with him, but I still think it's a good idea.
You could build a special consideration in the PDO with a special use permit, something like that. That's what we did back in Oshkosh, or you put certain parameters on the shared parking that it's X percentage, that you only allow a bump for X percentage of parking. You still have to provide the vast majority on site. There's any way to cut it. It's a way of just building your PDO. It's not been done before.
And I think it might be a bigger issue because I don't think we have enough parking allotted right now in our PDO. So I think he's seeing the present situation, and if we can imagine the future situation when we improve that, we improve the quantity of parking that you
And
need.
maybe it's okay.
Then it would fix itself. I think he's living in today's PDO, and I think he's right.
Is the
Okay.
brewery still posing as big a problem as it did when it first opened?
I
Not,
think,
not quite as bad, but yeah, on some days
yeah,
it's really
it
bad.
is.
I would say overall, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
It's, in some days it's worse than others, but especially on weekends or big events. I think, Nancy, I think the answer is yes.
I think we delete this from this list. 437, suggest we delete it.
We have one vote to delete. How do other council members feel about shared parking strategies potential in the future?
This all can be brought up later on. I mean, this isn't, we're not doing this for, for the millennium. This can be changed in the
Yeah,
future, right?
I would agree with Judy, though. I would delete it.
Right.
Okay,
It's a strategy. It doesn't have any teeth, though. I mean, it's just a
Okay.
strategy.
right.
So we're deleting it?
We're going to delete 4-37.
I don't understand why we're deleting things that could help us, but that's really confusing to me.
I just think they aren't germane they just aren't as germane.
You've got 140 other things to focus on. That's
Yeah.
probably why.
Well, I
Eliminate
think,
good ideas? Okay.
well, I think where they're coming, I think where they're coming from in this recommendation is they recognize that we've got Village Place and we have potentially conservation neighborhoods and we have Highway 5, and those are mixed-use areas, and that when a proposal comes, do we want to look at and do we want to have a mechanism in our PDO already in place to allow for shared parking as a way to reduce the overall parking requirements?
No, I don't want that. I don't even want that. I think the shared parking, this would solve it for Jeff, in my opinion. The shared parking should allow overflow parking, and that solves it. Does that make any sense to you? Yeah. In other words, it doesn't come into the equation.
Well,
It's
who
just-
determines what overflow is?
Yeah, and I think, you could, through the PDO.
Because I hear what you're
Address
saying.
that.
It could weaken
just-
our,
No, I think shared parking is a good idea generally because you don't want to pave over everything in the whole village for parking. And there are some areas where you can have, it's going to be
But I don't
a
want it to
judgment call, I think.
impact your issue's real.
So I'm hearing two council members saying there's some value in leaving it in. So can I ask that if there are questions like this, that we leave them in for now and that we can revisit it, and then when the next draft comes, if we still
To be clear.
feel differently, we
To be
can.
clear, though, to deal with his thing, I say it should not reduce the requirements of a building that's for overflow. So-
Okay.
So I'm kind of agreeing with Jeff.
Yeah, you may be right, Kevin. If we fix our parking requirements section of the PDO, maybe this isn't a real concern going forward, but right now, what I like to hear a developer come forward with is a plan that meets all of our
I hear you.
parking requirements and recognizes the fact that there's a shared parking availability for overflow because of the inverted parking patterns.
Right.
I understand.
Rather than one or the other.
I understand everybody's
Yeah.
side on this issue.
In the interest of time, I say delete
I'm
it.
comfortable it's a healthy discussion, and maybe we could solve it. Let's
It
move
says consider.
Okay, consider.
My recommendation would be to retain it.
Agree.
Okay, disagreement noted, let's move on.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we're going to go to taking care of business. This section's all about economic development and,
Some good data in here in this section. I really liked the data collection.
yeah, Randall Gross has done some work for us before. He typically does a nice job of pulling data together. The first recommendation, 5.1, is around develop creative spaces, identify potential locations for co-working and creative entrepreneurial spaces. As you know, those are right now targeted in that focus area on Highway 5. So management's proposed some recommendations here to just identify potential locations
I think
where we
you-
would want that to go.
Like your rewording.
Okay? Jack's okay? Everybody else, thumbs up? Are you okay with that language?
Not sure we need it, but that's okay.
Okay. Alan? Okay, we'll go on to 5.2.
Page number is that on?
Oh, I'm sorry. It is on page 157.
I just want to see, I got to find my notes that way, sorry.
Yeah, that's on page
No
1.
issues with that.
And then they go into a discussion about the office market in Pinehurst and office space use in the village, using some U.S. Census Bureau information, and they're recommending that we find ways to relocate office uses in the village center to other areas of the village.
So how would we encourage this?
I just wish they would help us find the ways, like John was saying.
They did not recommend a specific strategy for how to do this.
I don't think they had done, I didn't take that they were asking for us to identify strategies to move people out.
Incentivize.
Pardon me?
Incentivize over time. I think.
Incentivize or at least identify areas where new office professional would make more sense. I think the way management reworded that, it sounds like we're out to get everybody out of town, that
We don't want
works
to
in
do
here.
that.
So you want us to revise that language? We could say encourage.
It says identify strategies to encourage relocation of office. I mean, if I worked in an office downtown, I'd be, oh boy,
Move me out.
I'm a
yeah.
target, you know what I mean?
I would almost say if market forces could determine things. I like the idea of where Pinehurst Dental was and where Pinehurst Dental has moved. They were not in the hospital area, but they're now out with a great new dental facility, and that was based on the business for Pinehurst Dental. So market forces, I think, determined relocating and establishing a new building.
That's how I feel about both 5.1 and 5.2. 5.1 and 5.2 seem to me market forces will create this.
Okay. The reason management reworded 5.2 to the way that it is because all of the discussion in the document prior to that was all about office use in the village core.
Yeah.
And the recommendation did not seem to correlate to the text
Right.
that was in the document, so.
Yeah, they had text saying that throughout the document, but no implementation strategy.
Well, maybe we just believe in the market forces rather than the document. If there are other areas where you can have offices,
Does council want village staff to do anything to facilitate the location of co-working spaces or office space uses in the village? Or do you want market forces to
yeah, I don't know what we could do. I mean, Pat
prevail?
Corso has had some suggestions over the years, but
Well, the top floor with Zooks is those executive office spaces, that people can use on a share basis.
that's right, exactly.
Short-term basis.
And a lot of people do.
No, what it was meant is they're trying to get storefronts to be retail, and they're not saying do
First
anything,
floor.
not do anything legal, encourage, motivate, carrots,
That's 5.3, right?
Some of that is zoning.
yeah.
I don't know if you have to explicitly state the goal here if you intend to take care of it through zoning. Like, for example, the whole Village Place plan, one of the central tenets of that plan was to create an opportunity for the office
Types of businesses that,
spaces that are currently downtown to move to another place so that you could free up those store frontages.
And even then, they might be in the second floor.
Yeah.
So it's just a philosophy And market forces still very much come into play, so trust me, I'm not trying to go against, but there's a way to motivate and encourage, and I think there's a way to incentivize you. I was hoping they would tell us a way to do it.
How would you incentivize it? Taxes or money? Because I don't think.
I don't
we're-
know. I just know that it's not,
Or buy up all the first floor space,
Yeah.
and retailers come through the village.
But it's probably going to be a much more creative idea than
So
that.
Kevin, do you want to see a recommendation that maybe says evaluate all ways to incentivize the relocation of office spaces from the
Yeah,
village
because
center?
market conditions have to play a role here, and I agree with everyone.
Well,
Encourage, incentivize are consistent with free market economy.
Is 5.2 supposed to be about more retail? Is that what everybody's saying?
No, it's about saying, 5.2 is all about the office market. So 5.3 and 4 are about the retail market. So what we believe 5.2 is trying to say is there's a lot of office in the village core, and there might be more appropriate places for office space to be located
Because we want that to be
because it's the
retail.
village core.
So I think the answer is
I mean,
yes.
in a nutshell, that's what it's
the
saying.
Retail Association's telling us.
Yeah,
to-
but see, that means maybe we should not have 5.2 and focus on 5.3 and 5.4, because that's more of what we want, right?
That's true. They might be saying it differently.
I thought 5.2 was fine if you took the last phrase out, which is rather than in the historic core. In other words, it says identify appropriate areas for office uses in the village, encourage new office spaces and employment centers such as the medical district.
I agree.
Agree?
I agree, yeah.
Everybody
Cut out
okay with
last-
that?
Yeah.
Just
cut out that
delete
last-
rather than the historic village core? Okay, thank
Well,
you, Jack.
you still have an opportunity to do what we
That's
said
in
with
general.
5.3, though, Natalie. 5.3
Correct, yeah, so
encourages-
5.3 is next. You can
Encourages the
see-
same activity.
You can see my note there. How do we do this?
Right, I
I'm
know.
looking for the actionable recommendation here.
I think we
and
buy up all the first floor
we didn't
space.
get that one.
First point in getting it done is saying you'd like more retail and office upstairs.
Let's just say we're
By
going to do
saying
that.
it, by saying it,
Right.
you're doing a first step.
Well, we tried to legislate it, and we found that that is
And
not.
I agree. I think motivate, encourage, promote. all that.
Well, this one's very important to our residents. It had 142 votes. So I want to point it out that
We need some,
this is,
But
we
it's
need
not
some,
actionable.
we need some teeth and we need
Not
some
actionable?
actionable.
yeah, and we need some innovation from our consultants about how to do that.
Okay, so you want me to leave it at that and just pose the question to them and ask them to give us
Yeah,
some
and
I
specific
think that
And I
that's
mean-
recommendations?
Recommendations, not just don't recommend an outcome to us.
Okay,
Yeah,
There you go.
Without telling us how to get there.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. That's a great idea.
okay, will do. So we will definitely retain 5-3. 5-4 is,
I mean, do you really need it? And that's sort of how we do things?
I will say that when we had the Village Center Enhancement Committee several years ago, and we had different subgroups on that committee, and myself and Jeff Batten were involved, there was a lot of discussion about, we have special events in the village, like the tree lighting and parades and Holly Arts and Crafts, but there are also opportunities, and I can't recall the exact terminology, but there are opportunities for other types of events that are business events, like sidewalk sales or the wine walks, those types of activities and events that actually drive people into stores to shop. And I think that's what this is about. This is saying maybe you do something more than just shop small in the village once a year.
And if I remember that video the gentleman did, he talked about a successful downtown has events every week. You
Yeah.
know,
It's
kind
a-
of- it's a very aggressive strategy.
It is, and it's a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
standard Main Street community economic development strategy
Yeah.
used across the country.
But isn't that 5.3? The experiential retail and entertainment center?
It may be a specific recommendation that would support 5.3. It could be.
You know, I was thinking, I have that catalog from when I served on that committee.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about bringing out that binder and seeing if there's anything to steal out of that old committee.
I mean, there's a lot of good resources in the North Carolina Main Street community.
Yeah.
We are not one, and that's not a recommendation in here, but,
If I recall, Natalie, a lot of the synergy for events has to come from the business people
I'd agree with you.
themselves.
Correct.
And at times, we've had some very innovative business owners who have done things.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of cyclical. They get kind of tired, and then,
Mm-hmm.
somebody else will do something. So we need to just support those extra events that they're going to have.
I think government's better at ramping up events than creating them and managing them. You know what I mean? On the village center, like if good idea occurs, support it, use our resources to support it, but
I will say we, the village, have taken over the vast majority of events that were run by the business partners.
right.
They used to do the tree lighting. Now we're co-sponsoring Holly Arts and Crafts. There's a handful of, Live After 5 was a group of business owners. Now we do Live After 5. So there's definitely been a trend. They want to run their business, not plan
Right.
events. They're not event planners.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, okay. Are we okay
Gotta
with
figure
keeping,
out.
are we okay with keeping 5-4?
I would take it out because I think it's a part of 5.3. I mean, how we create this experiential retail and entertainment center, that could be one of many things. And I don't know why we'd call out just one.
one event, one
Yeah.
shop small, you mean? Yeah.
Is that the example? Does it say
It
for?
says
just an
continue
example.
to promote the retail businesses. Okay, so the core of the recommendation is to continue to promote village core retail businesses. And then they give you a how with events like a specific example.
Yeah, I mean, I think
re-
when we made the earlier comment that 5.3 isn't actionable, they need to tell us strategies. This is one,
This is a
one
this is an
such
actionable,
possible strategy. What we need is more, I think.
more than just this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wine walks is another
Yeah.
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
We
So
always have to
continue to
support
support the
those.
retail businesses. Who supports that with a thumbs up?
Yeah, I mean, of
Support?
course, of
Okay.
course.
I think,
What kind of a question is that?
I just, there's a lot of piling on going here. And sooner or later, we have to winnow these out because,
Well, there's not a specific number that we have to winnow it down
no,
to.
Well,
no, we would
100
not.
we have
Why?
to winnow it down to something we can deal with, I think.
Well, we have to prioritize at some point, but good ideas, let's leave them in
Right.
until,
so as a result of this discussion, we're going to combine whatever we think in 5.4 into 5.3. Is,
And we're seeking advice from the consultant.
Yeah,
yes.
let me consult with the consultants.
So repeat back to us what we're going to do on 5.3 and 4.
So on 5.3, I'm going to ask our consultants, are there any specific actionable recommendations that they can give us as ways that we can reestablish the village core as this retail and entertainment center? And then in terms of 5.4, I thought what I heard you say is that 5.4 is one such potential actionable
Exactly.
recommendation.
I think we should keep
And
it.
that it should be retained. That's what I thought I heard.
Yeah,
I
well,
would just combine it with 5.3.
well, make sure you talk about the
Well-
specific events then.
Sure, exactly, as examples.
Okay.
Fine, it's just going to get bigger. It could be just
Those
two
I would say for
lines.
right now, my recommendation would be to retain 5.4 until we hear back from our consultants about what they have in mind for 5.3. And it may be that we can combine them.
Okay.
we want to figure out something actionable to do.
Okay.
Hopefully, they can help us.
Okay. We have a note here, include recommendations for parking streetscape improvements for Marketplace here and other streets.
That's that discussion I had.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Because,
But you're not going to put it here, you're going to put it in the greening part, right?
be received well by the retail community.
I think that's what.
I think it goes
The way he
here.
described, the way Brian really described that as being part of the experience.
Right. It's about activating the streets
Put it in
and the
5.3.
sidewalks and the
Combine it with
space.
5.3.
So you're just going to have
Right,
one
this
big
might be a
massive goal?
correct, Judy, this might be a specific strategy as a way to activate the
Something we
retail
actually
center.
can do.
Right,
Check.
okay.
Okay.
Yes, whatever was said, I'll agree with.
That's a good idea.
I think this is one we're going to have to revisit after I talk to consultants, for sure. Healthcare market, there's no section on the healthcare market, and the question is, do we need any recommendations around there? What I was trying to do here is also trying to cross-tie into the focus areas. So there might be a recommendation to consider amending the Pinehurst Development Ordinance to allow structures to be higher in the medical district.
Isn't that covered in the focus area item?
The focus areas don't have specific strategy recommendations.
Oh,
But I feel like by definition.
They're embedded in other places.
okay.
By having the golf hospitality and tourism market there, you should have the health.
I think so,
market there,
too.
Just by
Yeah.
definition. But, if you have one, why not the other? It could be argued that,
I mean, if you
Bigger.
look at the numbers,
so.
healthcare's the largest employer
Right.
and the largest sector of the economy by far.
And then maybe you need the wording more like work with First
Largest
Health
employer, not the largest taxpayer.
and other medical,
Not just
employers.
First Health, it's the whole,
well, I said First Health and other medical employers
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
around, to encourage.
they're the two biggest drivers in this market, tourism.
Do you want to encourage expansion of the healthcare market? Do you want us to do that?
Pat
Is that
Corso
what you-
does
I mean,
have some
that's-
incentives that we can give, but it would have to be a very large number of employees, I believe. But it doesn't hurt, I don't think, to leave it in, because we do have, remember when he came and talked about some, yeah,
We
incentives we can
adopted
give?
it. We have an incentive.
We have that policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have an incentive.
Did we ever do it?
No
No
one's
one's
asked
come
for
along
it.
with the, meet the criteria.
Nobody's asked for one yet. So what if we had work with First Health and other medical employers to support the healthcare market? Is that
That's
sufficient?
okay, yeah, that's good.
Okay, thumbs up?
Will just support opportunities to further activate the healthcare market. I mean, I would parallel your language on hospitality and tourism.
I always like understanding what their requirement or needs are, for us to coordinate and work with with First Health to understand what they want to do, and then how we can partner with them to meet their requirements, as well as satisfy the requirements for the village.
This is about vision and strategy. I would say that the discussion Judy had in the last meeting, that we are a health resort. I think we're missing, we are a health resort. And First Health is part of that formula. So I think this should be a primary driver. We're a health resort, so I think it's kind of not just encouraging First Health, we should probably encourage ourselves to be more what we began as, a health resort, so I think it's really ties together nicely.
I think this is a fundamental issue for the village government, and how we interact with the resort, and the village government, how we can interact with First Health, because they are.
Two prime employers, yeah.
Pardon me? I'm sorry?
The two prime employers.
Well, that's not
But
what I
if-
mean. I mean, they could literally drive traffic to the village with events and tie in with I think there's more of a tie-in with lifestyle in our community and the hospital. And events downtown could be involving, healthy lifestyles. So it's not far a stretch. I think we were that.
Okay. John, did you have something else you wanted to add? Okay. In healthcare market, what I'm hearing is work with providers and employers in the healthcare industry to support and expand the healthcare market. We also could add in some language there about the expansion of just medical life science, innovative research facilities, and tie it into focus areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to go to 5.5, Pinehurst Resort to explore opportunities to further activate the village core. I'd work with the First Health, do the same thing.
Would work with First Health to activate the village core.
Yeah, they have events, they have
with
running
runs.
events. They have running events that drives
Okay,
incredible
so you're saying add a
traffic.
new strategy? Okay.
I feel like we're not
Yeah.
all can point to the
I
same
don't know how
direction.
much drinking those people do, though.
They don't.
But
I
they
know
do
it-
a lot
know
of
it- know it-
running.
That's the problem when I have the US kids. Those kids don't drink enough vodka.
Wait a minute.
Strike that from the minutes.
I think if you talk,
Second thought.
I don't know if Mark Wagner's here, but if you talk with Mark, I think Mark does interact with the healthcare providers, with First Health.
I mean, we do turkey trot every year.
Yes, and we've done a
Yeah,
lot
we
of,
do a
they've
lot
given
of
us a
And the
lot of
breast
grants.
cancer runs through town.
Yeah, I
I've
think
worked
there's
very
huge
closely with them.
opportunities there, huge opportunities.
Yours
Okay.
on the green,
I
you
hate
know.
sounding, but
Idea.
Okay. We're going to move on. Are we okay with the 5-5, work with the resort to activate the village core?
yes, I
Yep.
think that we should be doing more of that.
Okay. All right, and then we're in strengthen the economy. This is, this was a question primarily for council. Is there any, you know that we have kind of struggled with wrapping our arms around economic development in probably our last 2 or 3 strategic planning retreats. And so the question here is, do we need any stronger recommendations about developing an economic development strategy, becoming a Main Street community, adding
think
resources
In
to
reading
this
5,
surface?
6, 7, 8, and so forth, I think you've done a good job here, kind of carrying the essence of what we need to promote.
Okay,
Can I make one suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
And that is to suggest a new recommendation. You'll remember this, Judy, or Nancy, that you'll remember, let's see, it was August 11th, 2015. Consider the development and implementation of a historic tour mobile application to promote historic tourism for the village and assist visitors in navigation throughout the village.
And we did not fund it at the time.
No,
did
we didn't, right. And I have it all designed, I gave you the design and everything, we're ready to go.
Is it still ready to go?
I haven't worked on it in 4 years, but
I
yeah.
think it's an excellent recommendation.
Just to go further with that, when we talked in that meeting, Judy, we probably don't, we have a house program, the Heritage Program has a house program with historic signs, but it doesn't have a commercial building portion of it. And really, some of these commercial buildings got
No,
some great stories.
the historic tour app actually featured quite a few
Oh, yeah.
commercial buildings.
So it's just these stories behind
The
some of
Harvard
these
building and so
commercial
forth.
buildings are awesome.
Right.
Well, so,
does the rest of council support Jack's recommendation?
I do.
Can I ask you to say it one more time?
Consider the development and implementation of a historic tour mobile application to promote historic tourism and also promote the village as a destination and assist visitors in navigation. You can refine that slightly if you'd like.
Okay, got it.
Skipped over year one you wanted to add and really didn't deal with that question, did we?
Thank you, Nancy.
Do we
Remember
want-
that?
No, you did not.
Agree with Jack.
No, you,
The exact date, though.
So the Main Street community, you mentioned that up there when we were talking about all the downtown stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So does that belong up there, or do you see this as
On our
a whole
last
separate
meeting,
thing?
I thought in our last meeting, we came to some conclusion that we had a lead in economic development. Did I not? Did we not come to that conclusion?
that
Which
we-
is
that we
that
had to
should
what? I'm sorry.
lead- We should lead in economic development. There's no one doing Pinehurst-centric economic
I
development.
think we struggle with
yeah.
trying to come to grips with how we can take a lead.
Right, yeah.
I think everybody recognizes it would be great if the village government could take a lead, we just don't know how.
And I think that's fair, and maybe that's a question.
Well, I don't think the village has any business in taking the lead in economic development. I think the lead has got to be with the business community themselves or some other entity. I look at it sometime, I don't know if it's a conflict of interest. I'm just very uncomfortable with local government taking a lead in
I can understand that.
in economic development. I continue to look for the businesses themselves downtown as an entity getting together to say, here's
Building
what needs to be
owners,
done.
Building owners.
Yeah.
We do have an economic developer. Pat Corso is countywide, and when he has something that is appropriate for us, he will pass it on. What is it that we want? He mainly deals in industry, but he gets little leads every now and then and it's, just really hasn't panned out.
I think the real question is, I mean, is as we're contemplating redevelopment of Village Place and potentially that Highway 5 commercial area too, should the village, or do you want the village to take an active role in finding the types of businesses that the community may want or need in those locations? Or do you want to wait for developers?
Old story, but Pat set us up with an organization that was going to do like a 3-step process. And the third step was we will bring clients to you that fit the model of what you want. But we did not fund it. We funded one little piece of it, and we didn't fund the rest.
Correct. And there's actually, that specific recommendation is actually sitting in another section, which we'll get to
Okay.
shortly. The question is, in terms of village resources for economic development, do you want to devote any further resources to that in terms of potentially a Main Street community or staff or having a strategy? I think I'm hearing the answer to that question is no.
Well,
Yes,
but I would say, I'll go a little bit different place. I would add it back to 5.3. Ask the consultants. How is that a role that's appropriate for our village? How would we do it, as well as some of these other things? I do believe that we need to be proactive about what we want to bring. I'm dying for a shoe store. If I owned the theater building, I think I could get somebody here if I could give them $100,000 worth of leasehold improvements. But
Used to be a shoe store in the,
I
remember
know.
the shoe store in the?
I do.
so, I think we need, rather than us just saying yay or nay, let's push it back to them and say, what is it that we need to make this happen?
Well, I mean, we
Is
have
that one of the pieces?
We have received a recommendation in the past from the North Carolina Downtown Development Association for us to become a Main Street community. We just never implemented it.
Because
So
you have to have a
we've-
full-time person.
Because you have to have dedicated staff.
I don't think
to do it.
economic development's the right term.
Okay.
I don't think that's economic development.
I don't think- I
I
don't
think that
think-
serves the interests of the current businesses.
Because
not
I
about-
kind of agree with John on that, except what I'm seeing is lack of leadership from, usually you get this from your businesses, and, I don't know. I just think if we don't lead, who's going to do it? That's
Okay,
where I'm at.
And that's why I'm sending it back to the consultants to say,
Yeah.
is this a business unit? Is this a merchant duty? Or is this a village duty? Or is it a hybrid?
Because economic
Okay.
development isn't quite,
Okay.
it's like leadership of so we have a strategy, and it's executable, and it's possible it could be temporary and end if the leadership of the business community
Okay.
takes the ball and runs with it. So I know that's tough on a
Okay.
position,
I
but
think
I think Darren-
I think, I'm far from an expert on this, but I think that in most communities, it's either the Chamber of Commerce or a separate organization that is centered around economic development that does that task. It's not a
we don't
government
have
task.
that. We don't have that.
And
That's it. We should have it.
And I clearly don't want to get in some sort of discussion about should we have a Publix or should we have a Trader Joe's? I mean, we
Yeah, I
just
don't
need
want to
to
have that
Trader
discussion.
Joe's.
Trader Joe's, okay, Judy wants it.
I want more of
And a shoe
activity,
store.
leadership of activity
Okay.
and all that. So
Okay.
I think economic development maybe is too strong.
I'll pass that to our consultants and we'll have a conversation with them. And I think Darren wanted to add something as
Yeah,
well.
If I could add, back in Oshkosh, I spent a lot of time working on economic development activities. And a lot of what we did at the municipal level is we were a partner in some way, shape, or form. We had property, we'd acquire property and we'd go out for RFPs. But a lot of the relationships that we had were working with the local Chamber of Commerce, working with our economic development organization, spending a lot of time working on business recruitment and business retention. The vast majority of the time was spent on business retention. We made retention calls to all of our businesses to find out what was going on. Hey,
Excellent point.
was there any? Are you running into any problems that we can facilitate some improvement at the local level? So we made sure that we had a contact list and went around to every single business in the community to find out what was going on and whether we needed to make any changes.
I think you just found the name of it, because it's not, if you retain business, guess what? People want to come in. You, by supporting and retaining the business you have, you're pretty much becoming a positive environment to have a business in. So maybe that changes the emphasis a little bit.
So I'm hearing instead of economic development strategy, you're saying business retention and recruitment
And
strategy.
recruitment. Yeah, that would be good.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Fusion of new stuff, too, you know.
Right,
So-
business retention and recruitment.
I wouldn't have said this 10 years ago. I just don't know anybody leading, usually it's not, Bill, I just don't see anybody doing it, so
But the
it's by
people,
default.
I'm still troubled by the word recruitment.
but Kevin, the people who own the buildings.
I was going to say the
should
business
want
owners.
Those buildings.
I'm troubled by the word
full.
recruitment, too. I think that's economic. I'm just talking about having organized strategy.
Building owners.
An organized strategy and lead. That's really all I'm really trying to say. So I kind of agree with all the comments, but I'm just saying, if we don't lead, who is?
It sounds like we're still having a hard time wrapping our arms around this
Yeah,
one.
we are. We're going to have to ask for a consultant help on this.
If we're going to spend a lot of emphasis on business recruitment and economic development, when are we going to spend any emphasis on making sure we attract permanent residents
I agree with you.
to retire here as always, or whatever?
I think
or
I
buy
wanna-
the houses that are going to be up for
I think
sale?
they're the same subject, and I don't think it's about.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
think
too
we all want to get rid of this recruitment, economic
recruiting
development
businesses versus making
No.
sure that we make it an attractive place.
story. Isn't it the same coin? One side of the coin, retaining residents, retaining,
I don't know.
Okay, let us put our heads together on this and talk with our consultants about it, and we'll come back to you.
And I agree
on
with Darren
this.
about it. We're not Oshkosh, which has large properties, which Oshkosh owns, and what would you do it, and what could you attract for businesses to come in, or how it could be developed. We just, we're not similar to your experience in Oshkosh. Okay,
Okay.
next.
Can we move on to mix of uses 5.6? This is all about locating retail and destination uses on street levels. Is everyone okay with the recommended changes that we have provided there? Yes?
Yeah, I
Yes,
think we just
okay.
need to enforce it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, branding and marketing, we're not recommending any changes to the two recommendations that the consultants provided there. So 5.7 and 5.8, we're recommending to retain as they are listed. Is everyone okay with that? Can I see a thumbs up? Okay. And then,
One more thing, just, and it relates to what I just said, is in 5.8, we don't say anything about attracting residents as a good place to come and live.
because,
Talking
Good
about,
point.
Then
We
they're
actually
taking care of-
do those things,
You
but it
do
should
do
be
it.
added
They
here.
have an ad budget for
Yeah,
it.
and you had us add in our state
it
magazine.
doesn't say anything about that here,
Yeah,
that's
I
all.
agree.
Is it the right section? That's the only thing is this the right
Well,
section, Natalie?
economic development, yeah.
I
yeah,
agree with them, 100%.
okay. So that would be a new recommendation to market the village as a place to
Or
live.
embed it in within that one,
Okay.
however,
was
whatever
it?
makes sense.
It's about retention
Part of, yeah.
of your residents. Like I say, it's the same side of the coin.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jack. The next section is arts, culture, and entertainment. And on page 167 in the comp plan, they have one paragraph here, but this was also discussed, you may recall, in village character and authenticity. And I think this section deserves a little more attention than what the consultants have given it right now, potentially, in terms of the text that's in the document. But they're recommending an economic development strategy to kind of expand and enhance the arts, culture, and entertainment markets in the village by coordinating efforts to expand facilities in the region, which is 5.9. And then 5.10, they've got coordinate with the resort. But you can see there, we've added another suggested implementation strategy. Let me scroll down so you can see that one. To consider some ways to promote maybe local artist studios, those kinds of things, especially in the village center, in the village.
Is this really about expanding these facilities, or is it more about awareness, cross-promoting what's going on in each place?
I think there was discussion in the plan about, and it's actually in the first guiding principle. They call it a shared identity and an independent one, that there are a lot of cultural resources regionally. Sunrise Theater,
Yeah.
Owens Auditorium, there's a lot. I mean, if you look in the paper, you can see there's something to
Yeah,
do in
there's a
the
lot-
region.
There's an arts culture in the
Right,
region, but
right.
not a lot in the village.
But there's not a lot in our
I
village
think that's a
center area.
real fact. The orchestra is here.
So that was their recommendation, is that you have an opportunity,
Facility.
especially with the Village Place redevelopment, to add some cultural resources like a golf museum or artist galleries, shops, those kinds of things.
Or just use the Village Green for more performances,
Or use the Village Green for more performances.
like the North Carolina Symphony or
I think their
Carolina
intent was to
Philharmonic?
bring arts-related businesses who are housed in the Village Center, is
Right.
where this recommendation's coming from. It's not about events.
Arts are good for locals and tourists.
It's-
So when you find functions that work for our local community and the tourism community, it's pretty much a winner.
It's pottery stores, glass blowing, galleries.
When you think of
You know,
the
those kinds of
pottery
things.
around here, we do not have a pottery store in our
It
village.
is insane, really, when we're one of the biggest pottery places in
Well, in, our
Right.
Moore County is, but we should have it seems like we should. There's a
That's a
neat one
great
on
example.
NC5, yeah.
I guess my view on, my take on this is I would like to see and I've said this before, some sort of a summer music festival. That could be a chamber music opportunity. That would be where we might partner as the Duke University Music Department suggested, that they could come down and have a long weekend. We could use the Village Green. If there's inclement weather, we could go to the Fair Barn. If there's a larger venue, I know Dr. Dempsey is supporting, do something out of the Sand Hills Community College or at the high school. A visual arts opportunity, I like that very much. The only pottery facility I know close by is down on 5, it's down by the bowling alley. That's the closest one and only
Very
one I would
nice,
know.
yeah.
There's
But
one
as a-
in Southern Pines
But
downtown
as a
as well.
unique,
Raven,
but as a unique village, which still reminds me of New England, that's the kind of the take I take away from summertime in New England, or summer festivals that are in the Washington DC area, Wolf Trap and so forth.
That's a great place to start, John. I
What?
agree with you.
Okay,
But that might tell you what, instead of economic development, which is not what we're looking for, who's going to lead that? If we
No.
don't lead it, if we don't lead it, who's going to lead that? So that goes back to what that person, it's not really, we're not trying to, recruit businesses. It's who's going to lead an effort like that if we don't?
all right, getting back on task on 5.9, are we okay with leaving 5.9 in the way it's worded?
I am, it's,
Yes, thumbs up, may I have?
benign,
So the last thing about arts and culture, I think it fits into what we want to talk about is the character of our village. I think these sorts of things just enhance, and strengthen the idea of a great place to live in the character as we would define it for our village.
I go further, let's go to a small New England village our size and figure out what they do, and that's probably what we should be doing.
Lobster Festival.
Festivals, yeah, yeah. Okay,
That's out, no lobster festivals.
Yeah, lobster, they're lobster, it's not lobster, lobster.
have a pine cone festival and bring all the varieties of pine cones out there.
Right, let's see. Like I say, if we lead, it's amazing what we can do.
All right, back to the question I posed before, is everyone okay with 5.9
What
staying
page are
in
you
as
on
is?
again? I'm sorry.
Recommendation
I know,
5-9, in the plan, it's page 167, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
Yes. 5.9, okay?
Yes,
Yep,
Okay. 5.10,
fine.
okay,
kind of consistent with a previous recommendation to,
okay. And then the note there, this was some public feedback we got too, incentives
that's kind of what
to
John
create
was
local
saying.
artist studios.
what John was saying too. It's very consistent with what John said too.
Okay. Are we okay with something like that? Consider, okay. All right, we're going to move on then to places to live.
This is where I thought that thing Jack came up with, said about making it, I thought that would be in here. I don't think it is, but.
Okay, you can see here under note 6.1, I have, it really belongs under improved neighborhood and housing design. And we're now starting to get into the categories or the sections where things tend to overlap a little bit. So that's really just a recommendation to move it to another area. So while it is crossed through, there's not really,
Why don't we go back to that and make sure it's handled somewhere else?
yeah, I'll take care of it.
Is that fair?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I think this one. All right, 6.2, monitor changing preference of home buyers. Consider providing a broader range of housing types.
How would we do that?
Yeah, isn't that market-driven?
Zoning.
Zoning.
Well,
This is where it
certainly we
starts
should
to-
allow for what the new kind of housing is.
Well, maybe break this into two things, because monitoring the changing preferences is important data to gather
Yeah, how? How
and
would you
have
do
and
that?
understand.
What's the mechanism and what are you trying to,
Quantification. How do you
Yeah,
quantify this?
Just the task of absorbing, monitoring, understanding.
Are
So
you-
put a period after the word village.
Yeah, buyers in the village
Okay. And then
that are
have that as a
Change.
separate recommendation?
PDO or something, you know.
Okay.
Pretty wide range right now, pretty wide range.
We don't have any condos.
Certainly
we
don't.
do, but the.
Yeah, and some people that
Right.
don't want to
It's
cut
the
their
right
yard,
balance for you.
some
They
people
are.
that don't want to cut their yard and stuff like that. It's a really attractive
None in
market. So
the
that's a good
village.
point.
Yeah, the recommendation is really focusing around in those mixed-use areas. So it's saying consider providing a broader range of housing types, including attached and multifamily housing in specific areas such as mixed use in and around those employment centers. So it's focusing really on Village Place, Highway 5, and potential conservation neighborhoods as locations where a variety of housing stock might be more appropriate. See? So I'll split those into two.
Or is the second half of that not covered some other place?
I don't,
You're going to find that it is covered in, I think when we get to guiding principle 7, but I'm ultimately going to recommend that 7 gets combined with something else. But we're not going to talk about reorganization now, so
Sure.
let's keep it there for now, but it actually may end up being
Yes.
combined with another one.
Yeah, I think
Or
so.
you're going to find here in the next few pages, you're going to see the same recommendation, essentially the same recommendation said different ways and in different sections. So if we can agree to the concept that it's okay, then we'll handle all that as a second step. Then the next section is all about,
Where are you here? Give me a number.
I'm on 6.3, I'm getting ready to go there. 6.3, yes, 6.3 is all about protecting existing neighborhoods. And management did not recommend any changes to 6.3 or to 6.4. Is council okay with retaining those two?
Good.
Yes,
Okay.
very important.
6.5 is about, 6.5 and 6.6 are both about short-term rentals. And you can see management's made some recommended revisions there to evaluate the need for short-term rental districts to reduce demand for short-term rentals in traditional single-family neighborhoods.
What would be how could we make this happen?
I don't think so.
this is the way that Asheville does it.
Oh, really?
I don't.
They're not
The
successful.
whole Asheville situation is tied up in courts right now. I don't know what
It's
the
not
outcome is
successful.
going to be on that.
I'd delete these two.
I believe we need to address short-term rentals in one form or another, consider, evaluate, and so forth, because it's a hot topic, and I think we can't
I'd
ignore it.
keep
We can't leave it
6-6.
out of the long-term plan.
Probably keep our,
I would say, knowing state law and being involved with this discussion, because I serve on a restaurant association board, there's also a hotel association, so this is the only way I know is to deal with bad actors. I think the law allows you to deal with people that are doing things improperly or wrong. And other than that, there's not anything else that could be done, in my opinion. Now,
I
I'm not
tend
that-
to-
That may be
agree.
true. I'm not talking about the details of implementation in here. I'm talking about at least addressing the issue in the sense of evaluate options
Right.
to assess the
This
value of
discussion with
short-term rentals and so
registration.
forth. So those are rather vague terms, but they at least address it and say that we
No,
are
I think we should be
recognizing.
specific.
keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on statewide, because I like the addressing the bad actors.
That's
And the
it.
bad
That's all we
actors
have
are
the
the
ability to
noisy
do.
people and the people that have
Mariachi
6
bands.
cars,
agree.
in the driveway.
No, we
Yes, there
we
is.
should not lose focus just on that. That's going to be, but I agree, there's more detail in that. What is a bad actor? You have to define it. And so I think that's consistent with what you're saying, Jack, have more detail.
Wanted to, I'd be happy with these statements. I'm just curious whether they really reflect what you want to do.
Well, I'm saying they can't do it in the state of North Carolina. That's what I'm trying to
I mean,
My
I
view-
would say 6-6 is the only one that's rational for us to deal with, how potentially we could regulate them.
My view on short-term rentals is we probably should be continuing to monitor the legislative authority that local municipalities, the evolving legislative authority that would come back to local municipalities in order to monitor and regulate short-term rentals. That's what I would,
I think
because
I think
Six
5
address-
is
Say that
part
again?
of 6-6, right? So
There's nothing in here about.
I think what I'm hearing based
6-5
on,
is a potential way to do 6-6.
So I think market demand, I don't think is our business, but it exists, and so what do we do about it?
yeah, so I think what I'm hearing is you'd like to see one recommendation that's really more about monitoring legislative authority and evaluating alternative options to
I think
address.
when you see the words market demand in 6-5, it's not about changing market demand in the aggregate. It's about creating opportunities in a special use district
Correct.
that would therefore reduce the demand for people to use
So
existing
pick-
homes in
pick your
residential
district.
neighborhoods. I'm sorry?
So when you pick your district that you want it to happen in,
It would
That'll
have
be-
to be a new development.
I just think this is
It would-
crazy.
For
I think it's
example,
crazy
there,
to
we
do
have,
that.
we have already entertained some notions about a potential development. I don't think anything ever came of it in the end, but a development off Highway 5 for a
Correct.
short-term rental neighborhood.
really.
Yes.
Yes.
But that would, I mean, that's a neighborhood, and that's no different than any other thing that comes before you that's a subdivision, just happens to be a special use. But you can't curtail the VRBOs that are going around in the village center, and in number 6 and other places
But
around
if you
town.
accommodate the demand in another area that doesn't impact neighborhoods, there's only so much demand out there.
A little too much playing God for me. I think that I want people paying room tax and not living on a level playing
they-
field with area hotels. I like
They
paying
do pay
table
room
sales
tax.
tax.
Can I just
Pretty
share?
poor
So
room-
I think we should make sure people obey the level playing field and
Okay.
are not bad actors. Don't run over people's bushes. Don't break noise ordinance. I think we could do that.
Okay, so am I hearing that there's not a lot of interest in creating short-term rental districts? Thumbs up if you're saying, yeah, you want a short-term rental district.
I'm interested in what Jeff said about
Interested in
somebody
information.
wants one. If somebody wants
Yeah.
one,
They,
that sounds good,
Helper wants to do it.
right?
But
right.
I'm
So do
not
we
sure
want
about
to
that.
identify where that's appropriate in our community to try to get it out of the single-family neighborhoods?
I'll go back to what I said,
Yes, sir.
because creating a special district, that may be legislatively provided to us at a future time when all of this short-term rental businesses it comes to rest. up in Raleigh, and they're going to allow us to do whatever it is they're going to do. I would rather just that we monitor the evolving legislative actions that are taking place to understand what the legislate is going to allow us to do with respect to short-term rentals for management and enforcement.
Okay.
I
I'm hearing
agree with that.
one.
I think that you could take a look at, you could look at 6.5 as one potential way to do 6.6. And if you just want to leave it as 6.6 and
Leave
leave it
6,
vague,
6,
then
yeah.
Or add.
there surely
add-
is a lot that we don't know about the regulatory environment we're in.
Yeah,
I don't like the word regulate. I think it's manage, something that is allowed by the state of North Carolina. So, and that would mean you'd want to know who's doing it. I think it's fair for the public to know who's doing it. And it's fair to confirm that they're paying room tax and sales tax. It's fair that they're obeying fire code. It's fair that they have parking rules. It's fair that they, I think we should make sure, I think long-term rentals should abide by these same things.
All right, to keep us going,
For the public to know it, Kevin, but
Yeah.
it appears that there was a bill that was just passed
Yeah.
in Raleigh that would prohibit our ability to require a registration scheme so that we would know. So there really is a lot that we don't know out
Right.
there.
Right,
It's
right,
all
but-
being worked out, but
and I think John's suggestion of wording in terms of monitoring legislative and
That's
and
fine.
evaluate alternative needs is sufficient. So what I think I'm hearing is we're going to have one recommendation that kind of combines those two. I'm going to give you a side note little story real quick before we move on to the
Yes,
next one.
please.
My son is a rising senior at Appalachian State University, and one of his good friends just graduated from High Point University and got his first job. And he's going to be moving to Morganton, North Carolina. And he is only going to be there for 6 months while he's training to get a territory. So he is doing, instead of looking for an apartment, he looked for an Airbnb for 6 months, and that is what he's doing as his transition period to get a new job.
It's the new way to
It
vacation.
is the
Can I-
way that this
accommodates-
generation
May I make
thinks.
one suggestion relative to this item? I recommend that we have a definition in our PDO, and I sent you this information a while ago, that defines what
What is
is
a rental?
short-term rental.
Yeah. It's
We have no definition of short-term rental in our PDO. The first thing we should do before we start talking about short-term rental is agree as to what it actually
it
is.
is.
Shouldn't we look to what our state legislators are going to?
There is no definition on an NC basis of short-term
Well,
rental.
Can we just make one up?
There is
Or-
one.
Yes,
I'll
I
try
think-
to share it with Natalie. There is one that exists out there.
Yeah.
And
You know,
But
I
I think-
sent you that a
You did.
while ago. Yep.
I did,
I've got it.
it was interesting in our tri-county meetings, and Judy and
Yeah.
I serve on, that most of the municipalities are saying they're having bigger problems with long-term rentals than they are with short-term rentals, which is ironic. So their emphasis is that they're having big issues. So if you're going to require, nice lawns and parking on short, you really should do it with long-term rentals too,
Correct.
It's really the
Correct.
same rules.
How would you
Okay,
define a long-term
can-
rental?
Yeah.
6
Well, I
months or
think
Can I
more.
bring us back,
10 to 30, or sometimes it's 10 days,
20
sometimes
years.
under 30.
I rest my case.
can I bring us back to the topic at hand?
Yeah.
We have spent an hour and a half and we've gotten through 3 out of 7 or 8 pages. So, actually more than that. So if you want to try to continue to move forward, I'm going to ask if we could refocus on the next recommendation, which is 6.8.
Where did you leave this? Did you leave the word regulate in there?
yeah.
'Cause I have a
It
problem
says-
with that,
Well, Kevin, it says consider. It doesn't say regulate. It
because
says
I don't
consider.
believe the state of North Carolina allows you to do that.
Well, we don't
I
know
don't like
yet.
breaking the law.
It's not going to
We
say
don't know yet,
regulate.
Kevin.
Okay.
It's not. We will word it appropriately. 6.8 is, and this was a top vote getter too, prepare a village-wide neighborhood-specific sidewalk and street lighting plan and implement neighborhood-by-neighborhood approach, which is basically what we were doing before we stopped doing it.
Fine.
Are we okay with this one? Can I get a thumbs up?
It's good for me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hearing some consensus on that one. Improve existing neighborhood structure. This is identifying opportunities for small nodes of activities, centers such as parks, squares, playground. There was a lot of public feedback actually during Envision the Village that there were desires of our residents to have more neighborhood amenities located inside their neighborhood. So that's what this one is. And then, of course, making sure that those are connected. Is everyone okay with leaving?
I'm sorry, Natalie, will you tell me the page number in the big plan for me? Because they're not numbered in the big plan.
They are not numbered in the big plan.
I mean, in the written,
It's page 174
70.
and 5.
Thank you
These are
very
on
much.
175.
Okay, thank you. So,
Can we retain 6.9 and 6.10?
I think they're both
like-
fine.
I'd like to delete them.
For parks, are you considering neighborhood parks? When you say parks?
Correct. So it's neighborhood parks, squares, or playgrounds. I think the public feedback said our residents wanted dog parks.
I wouldn't
We
want
put
to
it in a
delete
different section. Hold on, I can't find
that.
it.
Want to strengthen our neighborhoods?
I just, again, we have only so many resources and we,
Yep.
you know, I just
Oh, we were already
wouldn't-
actively talking about this
So the
in one neighborhood.
22 people.
So the public input, but the public input on page 201, on neighborhood space destinations, 29% of our residents said who participated in the visioning workshop said they wanted a neighborhood park. 20% said they wanted community gardens. 16% said they wanted dog parks. So this recommendation is to address that public feedback that we got at the visioning sessions, that our residents would like some neighborhood
So you're
spaces.
Are we talking about 6.9 and 6.10 together now? They're not, we're just talking about 6.9.
6.9.
I'm talking about 6.9 right now.
Yeah, I'd agree, because in number 6, there's, this has come up twice, for some sort of a neighborhood park of
The
some kind.
gathering space
Yeah.
inside
We're
neighborhoods.
already
Exactly.
talking about it in
So
one
can I get
neighborhood.
a thumbs up if you support neighborhood
up.
spaces?
Thumbs
Okay, not
I want to
consensus.
improve neighborhoods.
Okay, so we're going to keep that one in there. And then the next one, 610, is just to make sure that you've got connections to those
That-
spaces.
that
That
should
if you
be-
can walk to that park
Would
or that gathering
prioritize
area.
that above 6.9. That is so important.
Yeah, we're not going to prioritize today, though.
I know, but I'm just saying, I just want, that is,
Important to you.
for a short
Okay.
sentence, it's probably really important to reconnect these
All right,
neighborhoods.
so I'm hearing, I think, can I get thumbs up from others, 610? Okay, 610 is gonna stay. 611 is related to, again, those focus areas, and Jack, to your point, the focus area guiding principle 2 doesn't have the actual recommendations of how to make that happen, so that's what this is.
But doesn't the PDO ultimately have to create this?
If you make the change to the PDO,
If you make the change to the PDO, yeah.
Gonna
To
change-
require connectivity between neighborhoods?
No, we're on
611.
611.
611.
I mean, I would just change this to evaluate the PDO.
For this,
To allow mixed-use centers
Yeah.
described in the
Okay.
focus areas?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, moving on to 612. All right, 612 is housing needs for aging seniors, and we've got a slightly modified wording here to allow age in place and identify appropriate locations for senior housing.
Isn't this market-driven?
Yeah, I don't understand why we need to be that specific on this.
Griswold Home Health Care, yes, they'll come
It's
to
a
you.
different,
Yeah, there are services so
There-
that you can age in place and you don't have to move.
And overwhelmingly, in the envisioning sessions last fall, people in that group said, well, we can go to Southern Pines. They can go to Bellmead, they can go to Phoenix, they can go to St. Joe's.
But that's about retention, retaining them in your town. But if you don't want to retain them, you're right.
Well, I'm just,
That's a little,
time for you to leave.
hey,
You want to say, get out of here?
but where's the space to do that other than out in the ETJ? And the point is, I think people were saying Southern Pines, provides it and we can go there. And they don't see in that instance they see the aggregate area of the sand hills,
Interesting.
not
Yeah,
necessarily.
I
Pinehurst.
recall some of those comments. I think I also recall other people saying they wish they had the opportunity to do it here,
Yes.
but they recognize that Southern Pines is right over there, so
Right. I mean, and then when you think about where you do it here, it's out west. So I don't want to go there.
I think it's
You know, so-
market-driven, though, like John
But I
said.
think,
Oh,
it's,
see, the-
I think it's market driven.
Right,
think
and,
we'll-
go ahead, I'm
Excuse
sorry.
me, I think we'll have some development opportunities that come to us for dense little condos.
Pinehurst senior
if
apartments?
you guys are against density, that's not going to fulfill this kind of thing, because a
I don't
lot
think we
of
should,
seniors.
the phrase senior housing is rather
yeah.
broad.
We can't dictate that. We can't do that through zoning. I mean, the zoning just has to accommodate that type of development.
Right, agreed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And
But it
senior
is-
housing,
Different
Kind of
housing
specific.
types, and
Yeah, you've already
appeal to more
talked
than
about.
senior housing, though. And
So there's two parts to this recommendation. First is identify housing needs. The second is consider a study of current and potential residents to determine preferences for different, really, senior housing types. Do we want to do that? Yes or no?
I don't think we want to do that.
No.
I think that's a
Okay.
market.
So
that's a
I'm hearing
market.
delete 612, is that correct?
Good
Is
for
that-
me.
I'm hearing delete 612, okay.
Yeah, I don't mind deleting it, but I think there's opportunities to do it differently than saying it this way.
Well, you've already got a thing in there about housing needs.
I think what my recollection was from the visioning workshops, as well as the Planapalooza event, more so Planapalooza event, was that there is a segment of our population who want to remain in Pinehurst, as you mentioned, and not, move out of the 3,000 square foot house into something smaller that doesn't have the maintenance and is closer to the amenities that they need, so they can walk when they are unable to drive anymore.
And I'm one of those, but where's it going to be? Is Steve Say going to develop the traditions? Is somebody going to do that along Rattlesnake? If one of those two options doesn't happen, you're going to go to Southern Pines. So it's market driven.
Okay, but it could.
One of
10-year
those,
plan, you're right on
It
the
could-
immediate horizon. Might not be
It
right
could
on the
be
10-year
somewhere else
horizon.
in the ETJ in the future.
just remember, when one of those two options comes up, it's going to be high density, and people are going to be against it.
Yeah,
But it's something that's needed.
you know,
Okay, so.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with you, Nancy. I think there's high density and there's high density.
Well, yes,
You
60,
know,
traditions started out at 16
You're right.
units per acre. Now, that was too much for me, but 5 units per acre, I think, is reasonable.
Well, I wouldn't put a label
No,
on
we
something
can't
that
put a
there's
number
all
on
different
it.
variations.
Yes.
Right.
Some are quite acceptable, others maybe not so much,
Right.
so.
Would you be okay with maybe, because you've got the changing demographic under 618 and 619 below, so you've got seniors and then they're referring to a younger demographic below. Would you be okay with maybe having one general recommendation that just says something to the effect of
Different housing types.
different ensure a variety of housing types to meet different demographics?
That's
There was
what our
something we
plan
already-
I would
says
agree with
now.
that. I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's what
I
it
think
says.
that's what we say now.
Is that okay?
I
To
would
do
agree
something
with-
like that?
I would agree with
And-
that.
And combine some of these?
Anybody want to consider amending the PDO to reduce the minimum size for a multifamily dwelling for smaller units?
Where are we, which number?
617.
Yeah, I think this is a little red meat here.
Red meat.
And it seemed very, very specific, and I don't know why we're picking out multifamilies to study as to changing the square footage. If there should be if you want a recommendation, I'm not against consider looking at the PDO as to whether or not we need minimum square footages at all. In
That
all
was the
the zoning districts.
recommendation.
Many municipalities do not have them. And so maybe it's at least a study that should assess whether or not we need minimum square footages at all.
That was
I
actually
wouldn't pick out,
recommendation.
this
Right.
one in particular.
Last PDO rewrite, of our last PDO rewrite, that was recommended, but it was squashed.
Yeah,
Nobody wanted to.
well, it's worth taking a look at again, I think, broadly.
Nobody will buy it. I mean, if nobody buys it, they won't build it.
Well,
So do you wanna
I just think that we ought to look at the PDO in general as to
Sure.
whether or not
I
this
agree.
is inappropriate to have. And if the community throws up all over it, they throw up all over it. If we can rationalize that there's no good reason to have these minimum square footages and we can sell that, well, then so be it. But I think it's, to pick out, multifamily houses at the only place where we're going to look to see reducing the square footage makes no sense to me.
Saying, consider removing minimum square footage
Well,
requirements.
at least consider and/or study, the possibility of not having minimum square footages in the PDO, in all zoning districts.
I would say if we could look forward into character-based development, it's going to be about the character. It's less than the
Well,
square
that's
footage.
another
Yeah,
alternative.
I know, but I'm
is
just saying,
form-based, yeah,
it's
right.
going to be about the character.
But I just think picking out mixed use or,
Yeah,
a multifamily as the only place we're going to study changing the square footage makes no sense to me. I mean, you either
Well-
take it all out, or you just leave it alone, or decide you're going to look at the whole package.
I'll tell you, it was there because of the conversations around senior housing. That is why that recommendation was there. Planapalooza
Oh, it came about, yeah.
and that, a single elderly person might not want 1,500 square feet.
Right.
That's
Well,
why
they
they
might.
singled it out right here.
Yeah.
Which one are
That would
we
be my
on right
recommendation.
now?
Yeah, I know, we skipped over some. We skipped over a few. We jumped,
So
didn't
what
we?
about 14 and 15 and 16?
614 we didn't discuss.
So have we finished 17 if we're going to go back?
So it doesn't necessarily fall under that category. It might have to go in a different category. But I heard Jack say, consider removing minimum square feet.
I didn't say consider, consider
Or
studying.
study the need for a minimum square footage requirement.
Correct. Something of that nature.
There's a units per acre that covers that already, which is
Most
ironic,
most municipalities,
they cover it.
many municipalities
Yeah.
do not specify it.
because,
I mean, I know where it came from. It came from 1970 lawsuit, against Diamond Head. That's where the minimum square footage started.
yeah,
Against
yeah.
1976,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's already covered in the number of units per acre in a lot of sense.
That sets a theoretical upper limit, but not a lower limit.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. But the market, okay.
Okay,
You
so
could
I'm
sell
going
it
to
for
change
more
6,
If it has
7.
more square footage, so the market would dictate it being bigger.
So I'm
That's
gonna-
ironic. So by
Okay, so
putting a number
Natalie's-
in, you might
Natalie's in-
motivate people to put that small number.
Natalie's in charge, and she's going to read what we have for
I'm
17.
sorry, thank you.
I heard study the need for minimum square footage requirements in the PDO.
Right.
Thumbs up.
What I thought I heard you say, and everybody's
up.
okay with that one.
Because
Okay.
I agree,
Again,
I heard study the need for minimum square footage requirements in the PDO.
A minimum square
study
footage
the need
requirement.
for, that almost sounds like we don't have it now.
Well, we
already
do
have it.
now.
Do have-
We're gonna, the assumption is
the-
we're gonna redo the PDO. Jack.
Evaluate,
Maintaining.
Yeah.
Reevaluate the need
reevaluate the
for.
need for, there we go.
Reevaluate the need for, okay?
Because we have it now.
All right, so that's 617, I'm going to go back up.
Okay, go back up.
616, ensure community facilities, amenities, and events are accessible.
Is
Too
that?
bad.
Are we good with that? Yes or no? Thumbs up
Handicap
or thumbs
accessible?
down?
Handicap accessible?
Yes, that's what
Yes,
this means.
That's fine, yep.
So 616, Jack, Judy, we good? Kevin, good with
So
this one?
what's not working now, is my question.
We have ADA requirements that we are in the process of coming in line with requirements on.
So, and that,
I would say that it's going to happen because it's already required.
yeah, so again, I'm not, it seems like this is standard operating procedure to have ADA compliance.
I could do without it.
Okay, that's fine. We have our first handicap accessible playground, don't we?
Because it's standard operating procedure.
let's
Is that
delete.
why?
Okay.
Is that
The
what
law requires it.
law requires it, so why? Yeah.
Okay, 616 is gone. 615, this is the first of, maybe not the first, actually, we did in transportation. One of several interconnected accessible sidewalks and path recommendations, and this one got a lot of
And
votes.
and are we going to combine these at some
Yes.
point?
Yes, we are.
Because
Very popular recommendation, we should keep it.
Yep, okay, so this one's we're going to retain. And then 614 is about community assistance.
So is that something that the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, if it's still going to be in existence, would handle?
They would be listed as a partner on
Partner.
the implementation matrix for this
Okay.
one, yes. Support community assistance programs.
What's not working here?
I do not know the answer to that question.
But on 14, I thought it's mostly used in other towns and not as much here.
I mean, I see.
don't know that it's
I see those
necessary.
buses go around here.
Yeah, we do it. It's
They-
here.
They come pick up somebody on.
Is this a
fields.
strategy that we need in our comprehensive plan?
I'd almost say the
I
I
answer.
don't know how we,
I don't know
sup-
what we would do.
I don't know how we
I
support them now. I would recommend
I'd
removing
almost
this one.
read this and say yes.
I mean, it's a standard operating procedure. I would think.
Okay.
But
So-
I don't see that van here much. I see it in Southern Pines and Aberdeen a lot. I don't see it assisting the Moore County. They're trying to
You live
get
over the-
partners.
You live on the other side.
I know, but they're trying to get partners. They're trying to get us to exploit existing things that exist and use them. That's all it is. That's all I see this.
We
as.
don't necessarily support them today.
What's our role with
I,
this anyway?
I don't know
Advertise it.
how, we could advertise
the
it.
availability.
Yeah,
Say
why don't
call
we
this
do
number.
that? That's free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
I think this is.
That's all I meant.
I think this is patient-driven. If they need
It
it, there's a
is.
service that's provided and they can
I mean, I
contact.
see one on Fields
It does
Road.
enhance us, though, to be able to offer it, even though we
I'm
don't have to
I'm
pay
on the
for
other
it.
side of the road.
It seems like a very
In my
minor,
Minor.
minor
being this.
thing to
Okay.
do, so I would recommend probably
You
removing
could put it
this one.
somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Not in this.
Yeah, let's-
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so now we're done, right?
Now we're back to
We're back to
618.
we just,
Now we're going back to 618, but we said we're going to combine the housing, we're going to combine 618, 19 into one recommendation in general about ensuring the PDO allows for a variety of housing
And I
for
think-
various
I think-
demographics.
And I think this is market-driven. So
But if we don't have it in our land use plan, then,
that's fine. So
there's
then
a
let's put it in the
problem.
PDO, in the land use plan.
in our land use plan, we have to cite, when you're rezoning, you have to cite a
And it's not
variety.
limited to, I mean, this gets back to this housing types and styles and locations that we talked about earlier. I mean, again, this is duplicative to me. I think we've
It is.
covered this.
It is, yeah. And that's what I'm saying, is the
This is about zoning, isn't it? We're not going
Yeah,
to create
that's
the
right.
actual housing types.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's what I've got in my
Right.
notes, zoning.
I wrote in my notes, ensure that we have a variety of housing types in the village.
And I know it's duplication, but everything has duplication in it. The historic,
So-
But we've got to
Historic
pare
rules
this
do,
down
and-
so that we can see what we've got. Instead of having it here, 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 here.
How about this, Nancy? Ensure we have a variety of housing types in the village that appeal to a wide demographic.
I think
Can't
that's
even do
good.
that. All we can do is create the zoning that allows it.
Create the zoning to ensure we have a variety of housing types.
that makes it easier.
Not even ensure, is
You
it?
can say, ensure that there's a wide variety.
Allows, yeah.
To allow, yeah,
And the
to
way you
allow
implement that is through zoning.
a variety of housing types in the village that appeals to, okay. Okay. 620 and 621,
Yes, but how?
Yeah, and you added, well, you want to go to,
Darren had some good information on the pattern books.
Well, yeah, through both, I would add it through character-based zoning as well, to include character-based zoning and creation of pattern books.
Okay,
Say that again?
I would add character-based zoning or form-based zoning to that along with the pattern book.
which one are you on now? 6-1, the one you added?
20?
620.
Oh, you're not talking about the one you added.
Yeah, that was just that was a move down from above.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that was a move down from above. Yeah, of course. This is, to me, the most important thing we're doing in this whole thing, this character-based development.
So consider
depending on the
amending,
legislature allowing us to do it.
And that's,
Oh, yeah, right.
and frankly, I think we should get more input from our consultant on that. But if,
On the how?
Okay. So Darren, did I hear you right? Consider amending the PDO, including the addition, or I don't know if you want to say addition, character-based zoning and creation of pattern books.
I think those are the two that we've had the
Yeah,
most.
pattern
Okay.
books and character-based zoning. We'll
Okay.
figure out how to word it.
Wordsmith it, we can do that.
All right, we can do that.
most consistent with what we heard from the public.
And then, so we are combining 621 with 620. right?
I don't know,
You want them separate?
they look kind of separate. One's a pattern book and one's, I don't know.
Yeah, I think just give us one and make the language work.
First one, 620 is
okay.
one
Yeah,
of the
we can
character-based.
include both the pattern book and
Okay,
character
okay.
based. They're very similar.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to have those combined
Take
into
any
one.
strength out of it, that's all.
We won't. Okay. And then we have a recommendation. This is a conversation that Jeff and Darren and I had about, character-based zoning, and pattern books helps with new development, but what are things that we could do, maybe in existing neighborhoods? And then, so this recommendation is to maybe explore ways to see if we can require covenants and architectural review committees. Actually, that's the second one. The first one is actually require covenants and architectural review committees for new subdivisions and housing developments.
So how can we do that?
We don't know if we can.
Yeah.
I think we need to say, it says consider or explore either one.
It's really the investigate one.
Investigate what if, possibility of, or something like that. Okay, I can change the language.
Read it.
How does council feel about seeing if we can potentially require through maybe a special use permit or district or conditional use district that would require the subdivision to have an architectural review committee
So
so
how-
we could have better design?
So how bulletproof would it be?
I would say.
We don't know, but the recommendation is to explore it, to see if we can.
Well, you can lay this out there as a requirement, but if there's a workaround that a developer can find, that's what I mean, how bulletproof would it be, even if you said you have to do it?
Well, I mean.
It would be in the deeds.
It would be a condition.
If you envision over the next 20 years, there's 10 subdivisions to go in. If we're successful 7 times out of 10, that's a good result, right?
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I
for example,
agree
it
with
doesn't
this
have to be
100%.
perfect.
I mean, I'm not against this, I'm just
Yeah.
like, how do we really make it happen? Are we deluding ourselves?
What's the
See, this
carrot?
is a
Yeah,
way,
and I'm not sure how we make it happen right now.
I think that's
I'm
why it's
just trying-
consider.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to see, are you open
Something-
to that strategy being
I
included?
see
in
this
here?
as a
Into
way
it,
to
yes.
implement character-based development
Okay,
immediately, even before the change.
so I'm hearing that
You
you're
see what I'm
okay with
saying?
this.
I see this as like an opportunity now, which rarely do we have. So I like the idea.
Okay, good.
Then also, I want to say, it's not, it will make it more attractive and sell better. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it should be symbiotic.
Property values.
It should be symbiotic. It shouldn't be us
Correct.
dictating. It should be a symbiotic relationship.
And then along those same kind of lines, and the updated one that's right below that is are there ways that maybe existing neighborhoods can create property owners associations to enforce architectural standards?
They can if all vote for it.
Everybody's
They
right?
choose, right,
Percent.
right.
We know they can, and I think the thought here is there an opportunity for the village to like develop a toolkit?
That's good.
Here's how you do it, type of a thing.
Right.
And that's what the and
Well-
create information guides is. So we could reword that to say create toolkit or create information guides to assist. I'll move that to the front, yeah.
Not a high
Yeah,
priority.
the toolkit's a good idea, because do all of them work well? And what is the ones that do it well, how do they do it well? You know, that's why, because
Well, the ones that do it have it, it's 100% and it's mandatory.
I know, but there's people that do it that might not do it well, and I'd like to differentiate.
Sometimes they die on the vine.
They die in the vine. I'd like to know why people are successful at doing it. That's important, because that would be what our toolkit would promote.
Enforced.
The other part about is how would a neighborhood do this? Number 6 is very convoluted because within number 6, there are about 5 or 6 different developments that took place over time. And the way that those areas were platted or plotted, you'd have to go back and you'd have to go back to the landowners or the homeowners in each of those separate little small areas and bring them and bring them in. So number 6 has looked at this a couple times, and they've come to the conclusion that it would be too legally difficult and a challenge to make that happen. I'm not sure if that's the same in Village Acres.
Same thing with the lake.
Correct.
Village
It-
Acres
The
is,
lake.
you know, of course, that when Diamond Head platted all 5,000 lots, there is covenants and restrictions on each of those lots that Diamond
He's
Head put
enforcing
in
them.
place.
Yep.
For example, no fences can be larger, taller than 6 feet and things like that. Most people don't even know that. Almost all the lots in Pinehurst have those restrictions, covenants and restrictions. I believe that they expire in about a year or two, as a matter of fact. But there was covenants and restrictions on all the lots that were platted by Diamond Head, and they're different depending upon whether they were single-family, or excuse me, one-story neighborhoods or two-story neighborhoods. And
Interesting to see that.
Yeah, and what John is pointing out is the fact that that the units that had these various covenants and restrictions, boundaries don't neatly coincide with the way neighborhoods are thought of today.
Right.
So it's, how do you wrap your arms around, for example, in number 6, I think there's 5 different units, all or part of which are in number 6, that in their deeds refer to their own distinct covenants and restrictions.
right.
Okay.
Wonder if they
So-
could find a way to modify their own restrictions.
Yeah.
So I think I heard there's
100%
some general,
vote.
I think I heard there's some general consensus for us to potentially create some how-to guides and give give neighborhoods the resources that they need to do that. Okay? Moving on to 622 and 623, 2 more high vote getters and from the public. 622 is enhance and expand the Greenway Trail system in accordance with the master plan and the PED plan. So the Greenway master plan was incorporated into the comprehensive PED plan, according to Mark Wagner. So this is again another recommendation to implement the pedestrian master plan.
Can you tell me the page you're on again? I apologize for keep on asking this.
I am on page 181.
Thank you.
This is just about neighborhood spaces having safe pedestrian facilities.
I mean,
Are we okay with that?
I'm okay with anything we can do to improve neighborhoods.
Okay.
isn't this, again, just standard operating procedure?
Yeah.
I-
No, I
I
don't, I think it's more proactive than that, so I don't agree. I think it's more proactive, but
No, I personally don't see it as standard operating procedure. It's a lot of money to expand pedestrian facilities.
We've talked about this in the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee.
Okay, so can I see a thumbs up for those who are okay with retaining this?
I'll
Okay.
retain it. Yep.
I
I'm
think it's
seeing
consistent with
consensus
Jack
there.
said about
Okay.
retaining residents, too. Goes
Okay.
back to the retaining residents thing.
It does. And then 623, similar to one we've already talked about as well, which is the open spaces and neighborhood amenities to meet needs for active and passive recreations in the neighborhoods.
Love
Can
it.
I see a thumbs up to retain this one?
Good.
Okay, good.
Let's combine it with the others.
Yeah, there's some reorganization that's going to be required. The next recommendation is 624, which is take necessary steps to preserve open space.
That'd be purchase,
No, I think you amended it.
We've
make it a bit
amended
more
it because right now our open spaces are really in our recreational development and public conservation zoning districts.
okay, so that protects it in some,
But again, isn't that a standard procedure? It needs to be in here?
This was a largely popular recommendation to preserve open space. There are ways to preserve open space that we do not currently utilize that are possibilities.
What if, for example, we had a desire to put a library in current public conservation or recreational development areas?
We could do it.
I would conflict with this, right? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
So
Yeah.
I think if I recall correctly, we added some clarifying language on this one on day 2. I'll have to go back and look. But the question here is, when residents here preserve existing open spaces, are they thinking, and our open spaces today are our parks and golf courses. That's open space. Or are they thinking about the vacant lot that's sitting beside them? Or are they thinking, about, something
they're
else, the
thinking about
corridor
undeveloped-
that's coming
Undeveloped
in?
area. Undeveloped area. I think they really want us to be proactive.
Yeah, I think in our ETJ too, especially
Yeah,
maybe
I
in our
think they
ETJ
want-
with large open spaces there.
Correct. Is was this one addressing that?
It'd be interesting if they knew how much money they were
well,
spending, they'd still want us to
but-
do it.
But so we need some clarity here, but the recommendation is sitting in the section of provide a variety of open spaces and other neighborhood amenities inside places to live. So open space preservation is sitting in guiding principle 8. This should be about open space in neighborhoods if it's going to sit
Could be
here.
because it's in that category, yeah, I
Yeah, if
got
it's
you.
going to sit here.
I agree.
It should not be about some land that we might own that we might want to put a library on.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because it's in this section, by definition, it has to be.
So what if we modified it to take necessary steps to preserve existing open spaces in neighborhoods?
There you go.
There you
Where
go.
are those
Consider taking
spaces?
additional, okay.
So
yeah.
smart,
That
somebody
would
needs
solve
to
it.
hire
That would
her.
solve it,
Basis.
what the intent was.
Okay.
In my opinion.
All right, so we'll get
This
that up.
Natalie, where are those spaces in neighborhoods that we own?
Think about, we've got some triangles, like, triangles that have
Barrett
benches
and
and
McCaskill, mhm.
there's some spaces like that, in neighborhoods.
Happened
Well,
in
if
the
we had
village.
this in place,
Not a
would we
lot.
have tried to acquire the pool property on St. Andrews and rather than allow 3 houses to be built on that?
And do what
Correct.
with it? Do what
Correct.
with
Yeah, that would be
it? Maybe
Absolutely.
make a little park? Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
I'd agree, I think they want us to be proactive, that's what I'm getting.
I think so too. Okay,
Well,
so I
the-
think I hear consensus on that one.
Well, But all you're saying now is preserve what's there.
Yes, because the recommendation above is to create new spaces. So 623 is create new, and 624 is take the steps to preserve existing ones.
I
Don't
just
let
want to
existing ones
I want to
convert.
clarify one thing about the pool in St. Andrews. The offer was buy the pool for $1. It was not, we'll give you the land, because I remember, Natalie, you and I saying, wouldn't that make a nice little park? Well, that's not what the offer was. The offer was, you keep the pool, or we'll fill it in and sell the lots. So that wasn't possible for that one.
We could have bought
Well, they
lots.
did eventually sell the property, okay?
Individual lots.
So it
And we
was,
could have bought it.
Oh, we could
there
have
was a
bought it, I
price
guess.
at which we could have purchased the property.
Correct.
Okay, let's move on.
Everything's
And
for sale.
625 is just ensure that those open spaces are accessible, that there's connectivity to them. Again, this is a repeat, we've heard this before, so we will reorganize and make sure it's where it's supposed to be. Okay?
When they're in different areas of the question, don't they mean different things? You know, that's talking about their neighborhoods.
Not necessarily. Mm-mm. Okay,
Hey, it's after 5.
after 5.
But, so we're going to make every attempt to finish
Okay,
this
I'm sorry.
by 5:30
We
or
have
earlier.
4 pages.
There's no
4
way.
pages.
That's going to be nearly impossible, but
Let's
if we
go.
can get through 7, I'd
Go.
be happy.
Let's go.
Okay. 7.1 is very, very popular. 7.2 is very popular. This is ensuring we've got relationship to scale, form, and surrounding buildings. In this section, it was sitting in best practices in neighborhood design. So the question is this about commercial or residential buildings? We are going to present you a recommendation to reorganize some of these categories so that it's clear what they're talking about. But in general, do you have any objections or do you support ensuring new and redeveloped buildings demonstrate a relationship to prevailing scale, form, and proportion?
And
Thumbs up, we're okay with this one, right?
yes, and this is the character-based stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
let's just say that more clearly.
Okay. And then 7.2 is zoning regulations for future development, again, desired scale. And undesirable building patterns. Maybe these two are the same thing and it's all about character-based zoning.
They are, I think so.
You okay with combining those?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like how it's, yeah, there it says, okay, yeah. So-
Okay. Again, we've talked about parking in front of existing buildings. Here's the recommendation again. And you guys were okay with that one, but we'll put it in the right place. It's a duplicate recommendation. Village Center is a historic landmark. Periodically reevaluate the status, be sure of the requirements in maintaining it. Are you okay with 7-4? Thumbs up? Yes? Okay. Oh, I'm doing it. Sorry. That's my fault, Jack. Yeah, that's my fault. I'm sorry. I got so excited.
You were moving so
We
fast.
finished,
You
I
were
got so
moving so
excited we
fast.
finished 6.
God, you lost track of what you were doing.
I'm moving quick now. 7.5 was a big popular item as well, promote private, actually, no, we've some reservations here. So they had continued preservation efforts in the Historic Village Center to keep historic properties intact. So that was their recommendation. Well, the only mechanism we really have for that is to promote private preservation efforts in the Village Center and support the HPC. Are you okay with the revised language? Thumbs up or down? Yes, okay.
Well, we did bring up in yesterday's discussion about HPC acquiring such properties for the purposes of preservation. It did come up. I don't know if I had support. But
Correct. You know what? And Kevin, I think I did actually write that down in my notes as something that you said to add. Yes,
so
you're
I think
right.
this would be the place for it to be.
It is, and I wrote it in my book. To consider HPC purchasing historic properties to,
Not that that would happen, but at least, you know, when you write it down, it's more real than if you don't.
yep, thank you for that catch. 7-6, are we okay with the way that is? Okay. And then we're going to add the one that we discussed last week, as Kevin just mentioned. Historic Preservation Commission, we felt like those were covered up above. You okay with removing 7-7? Continue to support the Historic Preservation Commission. We thought it was more appropriate to say continue to maintain a local Pinehurst Historic District. I'm seeing
Yeah.
head nods.
That-
We okay with that one?
Yes.
Okay.
It says repeat, 7-8, that's what we did eliminate.
Yeah, it's the same thing, so that one would be removed, 7-8 would. And then just periodically review and amend the historic district
Yeah, on that
guidelines.
one, so we never have to go through a rewrite again.
So we're okay with that one. Okay. 7-10, regulating the built environment. This is a rewrite of the PDO, including character-based components to deal with aspects of character and design.
And
I
that
think we know we have a
page-
PDO rewrite in our
where-
future,
where-
right?
What page is that? I'm
And
sorry.
we have this all over
Natalie.
the place, too.
Kevin, that one's on page 193.
Okay. Yeah, we
Okay.
agree with that.
So we're good with that one. Identify property for residential and mixed-use development. We said remove that because it's already in the focus areas.
So is there a new land use map that will come out of this effort?
The conservation and growth map,
Okay.
correct.
So when will we actually see that?
They're in the process, since you gave us the feedback on the focus areas, they're in the process of revising all of those
Okay.
right now.
But the zoning
You'll see it
map
when,
still applies.
to answer your question, you'll see it when you get the next version of the draft.
Not the same as a zoning map.
Right,
Yeah.
nothing changes the zoning map
The
until later.
zoning's unchanged to
Possibly.
change the PDO.
Correct.
But the land use map is changing.
Yes, but we're referring to it as a conservation and growth map as opposed to a land use map, just a different name.
The other thing that I thought was important, which maybe shouldn't be in here, but was in the written document, it said simplifying development ordinance, which is character-based, but it says use plain English rather than a complicated legal speak and easy to understand. I thought that was pretty incredible, you know, if that could be accomplished. Because it's probably more likely you'll be able to, it was in the, it wasn't in the goals,
In the
but
book.
but it was so, gosh, it seems like the Holy Grail. It does seem like the Holy Grail, and it's the character-based
So
development.
you could do the PDO rewrite
I think, yeah, I mean, we've been saying that, how many times we said that today? Our PDO rewrite, but I just meant, maybe people don't understand what character-based always means. And then when you talk about the code is written in plain English rather than in complicated legal speak and easy to understand diagrams, replaces pages of text, wow. It's like a bullet. It's like, I had bullseye written on the page here.
Okay.
Yeah,
So maybe consider a way to make sure it's clear that we're trying to simplify the development or simplify and clarify.
to get a good result,
Okay.
mostly for outcomes, good outcomes.
Okay. All right, can do that. Are you okay with deleting 711? Thumbs up, I'm hearing yes. Okay. 712 is work with property owners and pursue any public-private development partnerships, kind of like what Darren was talking about with previously, to attract the high-quality development. And this is where, Nancy, going back to Village Place, this would be like the step 2 that we never took, which is to consider issuing requests for development proposals.
Do those things work?
I think there's evidence that they do.
And how, I mean, what does it take to create one and put it
So
out
you would
there?
have, for example, in Village Place or, which is an area for redevelopment, you would create the master plan, so the small area plan that we have. So we would put together a proposal that says, you know, we want, the community wants to see this part of our town redeveloped, and this is the vision for that area. Would you like to propose as a way to make that happen for our community?
Got to be in the right type of an economy.
Yeah, correct.
Right, and enough substance to the plan. Yeah.
And again, it says consider. So are we okay with 712 remaining? Yes, okay.
And deleting 13 and 14.
And deleting 13, 14, and 15, because it's all included above.
Sorry for 712. In the context that you just described about Village Place, property owners and builders,
Yes, because somebody else owns that property, like along Rattlesnake, you mean?
That's a good add, John, thank you.
That's good ad, good catch.
We'll add that. Yeah, property owners and builders,
Didn't-
okay?
It didn't say that, just said developers.
It
Yeah.
says,
Yeah. Okay.
okay.
Rewording of 716.
Yeah, management doesn't recommend any incentives beyond the ones we have because they don't get used right
Yeah,
now.
I
So,
agree with you. I don't know what
okay,
everyone else thinks.
thumbs up for deleting 716,
Deleting or rewording?
deleting
Deleting it.
716,
Yeah,
removing
that's
it.
fine, that's fine.
Okay, we're going to delete that one. 717 is about gateways and corridors, and this, Kevin's on page 196.
Yeah, got it.
And we thought that,
Bullseye again. I got it here.
you good with this one? Okay. Ensure gateways, provide residents with clear visuals. We said maintain the signage and the landscaping at gateways.
I mean, you got enhance, so do you mean maintain it? Or do you mean you want some incremental landscaping?
What does council want?
I thought this was also, there's some talk about movements could occur on those gates.
That's 718, the one below. So 718 is as our municipal limits expand, maybe we should say consider or relocate gateways to the appropriate locations. We're saying enhance landscaping at gateways to the village.
Yeah, this all seems to be all about signage. I like the wording that clear visual cues that you're getting into Pinehurst, whether it's a sign, not necessarily the signage. Clear vintage, yeah, landscaping setbacks. I feel like we should do the visual cues long before the sign even occurs. I think we should start really trying to push.
Part of what we wrestled with on this was the whole effort that's underway right now under Tri-Cities to eliminate visual cues on our corridors by
Yeah, making
creating
their,
more consistency and
thought that was consistency
Our
with
overlays.
setbacks.
Setbacks, vegetation.
All visual cues.
Yeah, it's all
Right,
visual.
but you can't have the sign until you enter into the
No, no.
municipality.
Yeah,
with a
yeah.
bar. Easy for
No,
me
no,
to
but
say.
ETJ, I guess I'm talking more, the ETJ is still under our control, and sometimes we just stop at that, the border, and I'm not quite comfortable.
So do you want me to
Still a
add-
gateway, it's still
do-
a gateway road, that's all I'm trying to say.
Kevin, do you
Oh,
want
we
us to
don't
change
always
the
have-
language to say ensure clear visual cues at gateways as opposed to maintain signage and enhance landscaping?
But we might not have support on that, but that's what I want to do.
Okay, let's do thumbs up or down for 717, the revisions and recommendations that are proposed.
I think adding that language about clear visual clues, by maintaining gateway
So maybe it's
signage.
maintaining signage and enhanced landscaping
Landscaping.
to provide clear visual cues?
And let me tell you where my mind's at, like talk of that street light on Linden Road, which is, some people are for or against. If that was a higher quality product, that would be a clear sign that you're entering, So I'm going a little, gateways to me is a big issue, and it's much bigger than the sign.
Okay,
Well, I heard, Judy, I thought you said that in addition to the signage, you want other visual clues.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
I'm saying the
that's
same
what,
thing.
it's
Yeah.
an addition, not just,
typically see it with lighting. Lighting and signage are typically in landscaping. Lighting, signage, and landscaping are
and
typically.
change in,
Your visual
change in
cues.
development standards
Right.
too.
And character.
Character, right.
Open
Yeah.
standards.
And it has to go with, we're really, anyway, I beat
Okay.
the dead
Okay.
horse. I beat the dead horse, let's go on.
All right,
The only
are we
minutes-
fine with 718 and 19? Yes, yes.
You have my proxy for everything from here on in,
I have your proxy.
yes.
Does that mean you're
I've
okay
had
with
no other
everything
big
else?
issues going on.
So we're all right with those? Okay, 14 minutes to get through 8. Can we
Try.
get as far as we
Try.
can go? So you're going to see in our next meeting that we've got some recommendations here for some reorganization of stuff too. But right now, we are, Kevin, we're going to page 202 in the
Got it.
document.
Thank you very much.
Yep. And this is about Parks and Recreation Master Plan. It's saying implement the recommendations in that comprehensive master plan. Is everyone okay for
I
making
felt
sure
like we
that we're
need to
doing
amend
that?
it, but
I think you need to look what it is and reevaluate it. I mean, some
Possibly
of them
amend it.
we've overcome by time and all that sort of thing. It just seemed like an odd thing to throw in here. I mean, you have a master plan that I'm sure we're working towards, but.
I think the comprehensive plan is seen as the umbrella to all of those other comprehensive
Well,
plans. So if we're going
that-
to implement the pedestrian plan and the
Then I think
stormwater
you need to
management
review and
plan.
update, not just implement.
Yeah, and that's 8.2, Judy. Periodically review and amend it.
Implement and update as required.
And
I had
combine these
I had-
two?
I had implement and amend. so
Please
same thing.
combine them, yeah.
I had the same thing, implement and amend, so that's fine.
Jeff, can you repeat how you said that? Because I like.
Said implement and update as required.
Update required, thank you.
How about update and implement?
Update and implement, update
I mean,
first,
you gotta
yeah.
update it
I
first.
kinda- I hear you.
Yeah,
I
and stuff that's not gonna happen for whatever.
All right, update and implement, and we'll combine those two, okay? 8.3, obviously another popular one here, continue to provide parks, open spaces, recreation facilities. Is everyone okay with the language that we have suggested here?
Yeah, especially
Thumbs
like-
up?
I like the word, the passive and active
It
recreation.
is,
I like that a lot.
Good for me.
okay? Okay with that one. You can see we combined some of the language of 8.4 into 8.3, so 8.2 would be, 8.4 would be deleted.
But this is an example of where we need to put all these parks together, so we see what we're committing to, or thinking about committing to. Because we have neighborhood parks, now we have big parks and rec.
Not now.
No,
That was by design. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's what we learned from this was that our current Parks and Recreation Master Plan calls for more regional parks as opposed to neighborhood or community parks. And so I think our community is telling us something different today than it did back in 2011 when we did this
Yeah.
Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Okay? Trees, protect the trees, continue to maintain tree preservation. We said enhance tree preservation and standards for tree planting and preservation in the PDO. Is everyone okay with the language that we have there for 8.5?
I love trees.
Okay.
And myself.
Thank you, John.
Write that down.
I love trees.
Boldry loves trees.
Continue to maintain our status as a tree city. I think that's a pretty standard. Is everyone okay with continuing to do the tree city?
Still
Okay.
love trees.
Okay. Management didn't really see a lot of value to registering champion trees.
This is the one thing I really wanted.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Help us articulate it then.
well, I mean, my irrigation guy pointed out a pine tree at the very back of my lot that had to be here since before the beginning of Pinehurst. I mean, you know, there are some places along Everett Road, there's a huge tree right in the right-of-way near Everett House that needs to remain. I mean, I think we do need to be looking out at these things and figuring out how to care for them.
Maybe there's a way to accommodate
They're
Judy
going to
with
remain
it.
until they die anyway.
I get that, but until they die, they need to be preserved.
Maybe there's a way to support Judy with
This is just-
education.
They don't have to be registered for that to happen. I think our current programs ensure that.
Would that, would,
Yeah, we're not going to allow that tree to come down in the right of way now until it dies.
Do you
or
want to
until it's in danger
devote
of
village
dying.
staff resources to registering champion trees?
No, I was
Yes or
trying
no?
to accommodate this in a different way, educating. I thought it was more than our.
Judy, what you're
property. I thought it was
proposing,
more than our property. I thought it was even other people's property.
Judy, what you're proposing,
Their
would you,
choice. Yeah, that would be education.
Yeah, I think it comes under education, educating people about
Okay.
champion trees and
John,
not
did-
registering.
Judy, would you're
John has a
proposing,
comment.
would 8.1 not sufficiently cover what you're saying? Enhance the tree preservation program and preservation in the PDO? Would it something need to go over and beyond that for you?
I mean, I guess,
I would distinction between what's in the village right away and what's on a private property.
right, but I think definitely also to educate the public about it, to be on.
I support
mean,
that.
There's,
Educating.
you know, just to make sure that there's not, I mean, that gets into the clear cutting and all of that stuff, you know, that people are doing.
Could that be part of a strategy in the tree preservation program, which is a education part of that? I would go not only for for individual homes, but also for builders too.
Because I'm not very familiar with the registration process.
I'm
National-
uncomfortable with that.
Yeah,
Education, I'm in.
Well, I
I'm
don't
in.
know what it
Yeah,
is, and
I'm in
maybe it is
100%.
private residents
Yeah.
can register their own. So do you want to just leave it in here for now, and then we can,
I think we should educate people
Let's
on
just-
champion trees. I don't have any problem with
Does
that.
anyone remember the tree down in the village, the
Ode
big
to the
huge tree,
stump.
Jeff Benton? And it was dead. We had to cut it down. And then they wanted to preserve the stump.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that ugly stump.
In front of the casino building you're
Yeah.
talking
Yes.
about, yeah. Right.
For years, but
Well, aren't they building
And they
a
put
mini
plants in the
library on a
stump.
stump in
Yeah,
Southern
a stump- a
Pines that was in
stump
the
library.
paper?
okay, so do you want to retain this one for now?
Well, I think the
what?
registering of champion trees, I don't understand what it,
Can we change it to
Education.
consider
Or the implica- we don't know
identifying
what the
and
implications
registering
I don't know
until
what
we
the
figure out
implications
more
are.
about the plan?
I like education,
Sounds good.
education on
Okay.
trees, and what are champion trees seems really like a good thing.
Okay, got it. We're going to say,
Educating people on conservation, educating people on recycling, it fits in all.
speaking
that.
of conservations, let's
Yeah.
move on to water resources.
Yeah,
Water resources.
good job on that transition.
8-8. Continue to protect water features. That was extremely popular.
Yes.
Thumbs up, we're good with this one?
Yeah, and I think that fits well in education too, like we talked about. I think-
Okay. Continue to protect wellheads and well fields. We used to have a wellhead protection plan, and so the recommendation here was actually go back and look at whether we needed to
I
update
think the
it.
legislature said we could not do that.
We cannot have,
And have a wellhead protection plan. The problem was our wellhead protection plan as written did things that a wellhead protection plan can't do.
Okay. Like many of our policies, let's, get it right so what we can do.
okay?
Obey the law.
All right, so leave that one in there. Reduce harmful pesticides, fertilizers on village-owned property.
That's part of a wellhead protection plan.
It's part of the
Okay.
wellhead
That's part
protection.
of the law.
Okay, so can we keep that one? We don't know what the village does to maintain septic systems. We don't do anything.
That's an individual homeowner, if you have one.
Yeah,
Most don't.
so our recommendation is to remove that. Is council okay with removing septic systems? I'm getting thumbs up, okay? And proper disposal of harmful chemicals and hazardous waste.
They have those days at the fire department where you
Yeah,
can
we
bring
have
your
those
stuff.
days you collect them, that counts.
That's good.
We
Yeah.
need more of those, probably, yep.
Probably need more days with the, yeah, I agree with that.
Do you want me to consider expanding household hazardous waste?
You guys know
events?
on usage.
Yeah,
You know
Whatever,
whether you
whatever's
do-
being
You can
done
do
is pretty
that,
good.
yeah.
rather be put on you guys to decide.
Okay,
And the county has, up in Carthage, there's special places for pesticides and
Right.
batteries and all sorts of things. There's a
Hazardous
special
waste
place there for at Carthage.
yeah, that's where we changed it to encourage residents to
Agreed.
dispose of that stuff that way. The next one, 813, is water conserving measures in households. We put information on the website, so we'd want to continue to do that.
I
I'm
think I
seeing
brought up
head
that
nods.
water barrel program I saw in some other municipality on.
Correct.
this.
Yep. 814, consider impact of future development on impervious surface needs. So what we did here is we said actually use that software Community Viz software to quantify the impact of development on impervious surface limits and water needs.
And then what about stormwater?
We don't-
Stormwater,
What was
we
that last
covered
time?
under infrastructure
Yeah,
and
under
guiding principle
infrastructure.
3.
I mean, just
I'd like-
interlinking this with that, because
Yeah,
this should
storm-
help guide
Yeah,
that work
Okay, I'll write a note,
Authority
interlink with
almost.
stormwater.
yeah.
from it. And what about recycling? Did we have that earlier?
Recycling, there's no recommendation.
Well, it's in a different section. I just can't.
Recycling's probably under, it's on the last page probably.
I mean,
but
I looked at
let's go.
I just
sustainability,
wish-
but I don't see it.
What I can't remember what section it is, but we had no discussion of the bottle issue, which is obviously
No,
prime
there's
time
none.
right now.
Glass issue, yeah.
The glass
We'll
issue.
figure it out.
The
Okay.
glass issue, I really wish they had in it. They didn't have it in there. It was
In
in
the
a previous
meantime,
section,
I
though.
have house guests that are going to Virginia. I give them all my wine bottles to recycle.
Just ride through Southern Pines and put them in their little things.
Okay, can we go to 8:15? And sorry, Jack, I did the same thing. I didn't update this. My apologies.
Okay.
8:15, land conservation. So this recommendation is to encourage preservation of land for both conservation and recreation through zoning. Review and update the PDO
Consistent
as
with what we
needed.
heard.
Yep, that's good.
Phrase through appropriate zoning should be used lots of times when we talk about zoning. I think that was a good phrase.
Okay, so you
Not-
like this language, okay?
Not picked up everywhere.
All right, so we will retain 8:15. 8:16 is a rewording change. SALT's getting ready to change its name to develop partnerships to help with land conservation efforts.
I like partnering, so I like that. This is consistent with what.
So this is, and you'll see a little further down in 8:23, there was a specific recommendation about equestrian conservation land.
I think that's really good because, I mean, it depends on how you're thinking about the ETJ.
Right.
You know, do we want it to be more like Young's Road? And so I don't know whether this belongs here or in the overall land use or.
The opportunity
Why does it
exists.
have to be? Nice.
What was that?
You blew it up.
Sounded
Beth.
like lightning.
If you have
Oh,
zone,
it is.
if you
What
have
is-
zoning at the right densities, why does it have to be equestrian?
I think we want to encourage it, or allow for it, the potential.
That's an
But your zoning would
opportunity.
do that if you had R5 or R210 or a higher or a lower density zoning than it would allow for it.
However you want to
Seems
weave
kind of
it in.
specific, I guess, is,
I think if the opportunity existed, I don't think anybody would oppose it if somebody wanted to create an equestrian. That's I guess the point. I would support it, you know. But you're right, it could be, there'd be other things too. There'd be other things in that category that would conserve land that I'd support,
right.
right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I think what I'm,
Instead of 2 horses, the folks want to have 2 cows,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it has to
or
do,
raise ostriches. I mean,
any conservation,
Llamas. We
anything
want
that
llamas.
conserves land,
goat farms.
well, they'll eat everything, so.
Okay, so can I go back to 816? Are we okay with that language? I think I heard yes. And we're combining 815 with that one. And same thing, 818's covered. 823, are we okay with that language as well?
Eat what?
couple of
There's
23.
2 823s.
I thought that's what we're talking about.
20, oh,
There's 8 and 19.
That's what we're talking about. It's
But there's
specifics,
two-
one
I don't know what
way to
happened there.
conserve land instead of all the ways.
All of them.
Yeah, that's the only issue.
I'm sorry, I'm on the one that says assess the potential for conserving land in the ETJ for
That's fine.
equine
I was just pointing
purposes.
out there are 2
I'm
823s.
I
sorry.
didn't see that. I didn't see
There are
that, Jack.
two, yeah.
Thank you. Are we okay with assessing the potential for conserving land? Thumbs
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, we
If
already
you
have
are,
that. Yeah,
yes.
I guess it's duplication. That's the only reason we're deleting it. It's duplication, right?
Wait a minute, what's being
No,
deleted?
I'm not, no, we're not recommending deleting. So, I'm on the first time you see the recommendation number 823. My apologies for
One
that.
after 818.
The one that's after 818.
Yeah.
And we've recommended the language to be assess the potential for conserving land in the ETJ for equine purposes.
Seems
Do
too
I hear
specific.
council's support for that?
I think it's too specific.
Well, they wanted to be specific on this one. There's other conservation, in general, general conservation's up in
How would it be
815.
different, though, is my,
What, farm, isn't the word
if
farm
you have
appropriate?
if your land use permits equine purposes, it permits a whole bunch of other things, too. And why are we being specific about that?
I agree with it, so I'm not even against it, but I just thought should be broader.
The
Farm,
description,
farm.
the description in here is that another topic that came up during the process was interest in developing equestrian conservation areas in the rural areas of the ETJ. There's national precedent of conservation of land for equine purposes, and the Equine Land Conservation Resource provides tools to help protect and conserve land for horses.
But like Jeff
Take
says,
your-
what if somebody wants to have cows?
Okay,
No.
so if we don't, go ahead.
I'm
Or,
reading is it says conserving land in the ETJ, so when I say conserving land, it's an assemblage of land for that purposes.
For horses.
It's not raising them, I don't think it's raising them per se, like 1 acre per.
Having common
one per
land
five.
like
It's
out in
having
on
a
horse
common
country.
A
area.
recreation area is what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like riding,
Horse recreation
horse
area.
riding
That's
trails.
Yeah, that's how I'm.
That's what this is about. It's
I got
about
it.
creating horse riding trails.
Oh.
And say that.
It doesn't say that,
Doesn't say
and that's
that.
a good thing to say.
Clear on it then.
Okay,
That is,
Yeah.
Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, it's a recreational amenity then, right?
that seems like
It goes in a different place then.
that's a huge
Well,
investment.
it's conserving land for equine purposes.
Well, it's conserving,
Clarify equine purposes, okay.
Recreation purpose.
well, there's the word used in park, passive. It's
Like
passive,
if,
passive conservation, where it's
like a
land.
park for horses,
Yeah.
Yeah, or a distraught,
for
yeah,
that use.
a practice area for dressage or whatever it is.
I used to rent horses.
It's like
right
a
down here
greenway for
across from
horses.
the,
Your kid?
yeah, across from the
Okay.
brew pub, there was the
Steep plant,
stables.
I remember that.
Yeah, you could
Okay.
rent a horse there.
Yeah, exactly, the
Maybe
stables.
we ought to think about that.
It's basically what they're saying is equine, horses are a part of our culture, and there's an opportunity in the ETJ to kind of capitalize on that part of our culture. Okay? Moving down to wildlife and wildlife habitat. Continue to work with the wildlife to protect endangered species habitats. That's all about the red cockaded woodpecker. We okay with that? Okay.
Love woodpeckers, too.
Do you like pine trees?
And trees.
And trees? They continue to protect the
Trees and
longleaf
woodpeckers.
ecosystem?
How about
course.
wiregrass? You like
I think
wiregrass
that,
too?
Okay, we'll keep that one.
No, I do not
I mean,
like
obviously, from
wiregrass.
the, you know, the support,
It's a necessary part of the ecosystem.
Okay, 821 is discourage introduction of invasive or non-native species in public open spaces. Is everyone okay with this one?
I agree with that.
Yes, I'm hearing some
Yep.
yeses. And golf course ownership, mitigate impacts of non-native plantings. So they were very impressed with what the resort did on their renovation and want to make sure that other golf courses in Pinehurst consider those same strategies.
Yeah,
Golf
that
courses
seems
are
very
those.
consistent.
Which golf course is that?
We have a
Midland.
couple in Pine Wild, a couple in CCNC, and we have
Yeah,
Midland.
that's true.
Yeah.
We got a couple.
And it still counts, getting a
Okay.
third party to,
Get on that right away.
to do this.
All right, so I'm hearing retain. And then opportunities in the ETJ, we just said that should all be lumped up under the conservation
Yeah.
land section. You okay with that?
Great. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Only got 5 more to go, right?
We're gonna do it. We're gonna be a little bit past 5:30, but we're gonna be close.
Really close.
Energy conservation. So they recommended completing energy audits of public facilities and buildings. This is something we've done in the past, but we don't have that on a regular schedule as new technologies change. So that's the recommendation here, is to do a village building and facility energy audit every 5 to 10 years. We okay with this one remaining? I'm hearing thumbs up.
Frame 10 years then?
Yeah, we think so. And then the second one, 825, there is been reworded to consider updating development standards to encourage or require energy conservations in commercial
What would they
development.
typically be? I mean, wall thickness or something like
Panels,
that?
maybe?
Insulation,
Insulation, solar panels.
aluminum materials.
Big things that came
Window
out of our last
materials.
one was redoing all of our light fixtures to
Light
LED.
fixtures, LED
I mean,
fixtures.
in the PDO, it says here, you know,
Well, the
I'm
PDA
sorry.
discouraged it. They wouldn't allow it, and I think, in the past sometimes.
I don't know about that.
Aren't there green?
What other
talking about
types, Darren,
826?
of
We're on
energy
826?
conservation
Yeah,
methods?
no, 825.
25, development standards, that's where I was asking about.
Yeah, let's see what Darren,
Things you do with the windows, ceiling, frame, you know, like.
Minimum
more-
R factors and
Yeah,
so
more-
forth.
And more, the more windows you have, the more energy that you theoretically you can be going through. So if you incentivize it by allowing, and we don't usually recommend this, more blank walls, that would be an energy conservation method.
Or R
in the
factors
appropriate-
and
or
ceilings
R
and so
factors
forth,
in
yeah.
the ceiling assemblies.
Low flow commodes, stuff
big-
like that.
A big one that we saw back in Wisconsin was wind, both wind and solar. Those are one of the things, and for a number of years, we did a lot to discourage solar panels. Some state law changed, and we changed our zoning ordinances to be more permissive of that.
I think we've had a green building credit that we have
Yes,
provided
right, 'cause there's some
developers.
green builders.
I think there's, I don't know if it's still in place, I haven't seen it in a while, but we've had one.
Okay, this is good.
Okay,
then.
so you're okay with leaving that one in? And then 826 and 27, management did not recommend changing. That's just promote renewable energy
I wonder if it's
options.
separate, like one is residential and one is commercial, but okay. But go ahead.
Oh, do you want to say
I don't know, it just seems
825
like two
in
different
residential
animals.
and? Oh, yeah, we can change
Curtain
that.
and residential and curtain commercial
yeah.
seem like two different paths to me, and, but if they're the same, you guys are the professionals.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at that. Promote renewable energy options, I'm on 826 for homes and businesses. That's the solar panel. And then create an energy plan for the village that studies impacts and feasibilities of alternative energy sources in the village.
What are
Now, what
those
would they be?
alternate-
Don't we have an
no idea.
alternative energy committee,
It has been disbanded
right?
for a
I
couple of
heard they
years.
did some good work.
Couple of years now.
Have
They did do some good work.
And those documents
Yeah.
exist?
They
that
put some
worked
solar
on?
panels on one of the barns.
I'd like to see.
Good.
And how about alternative energy sources for vehicles?
That is eight,
29.
number 29.
Okay?
time.
Good.
Yep, so you're okay with keeping 829 in there, I'm
But
hearing?
828, what do we think that is? I mean, 827, sorry.
We're trying to partner with somebody to get updated charging stations.
No, 27,
27.
I'm sorry.
I think that could include solar panels on roofs when we replace
Yeah.
the roofs.
And what the
That would
impact
be
of
the
that
only
would
example
be.
I can think. We're not going to build a wind farm out here that I know of. We don't have any hydroelectric possibilities, do we?
We got-
Yeah, that would be a formal study that looked at I think the cost feasibility of
Or in a new building, we use
Investing in renewable
geothermal
energy.
rather
Or
than,
geothermal,
rather
right,
than the
right.
normal
Right.
HVAC.
I bet you would
Yeah.
cost
For
out.
example.
I bet you would cost outright.
That's good.
Okay, so I think I'm,
Is there a time frame on that, like the other stuff? Like,
just consider.
okay.
yeah, so I think I'm hearing retain 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28 is consider partnering with private entities to install electric car charging stations, which is what we've talked about previously. And there was support for that, right?
Mine was a thumbs up.
Yes.
And hybrid vehicles, studying the use of that was also retained. So I'm seeing retain everything under this section.
And don't our chargers not work for some vehicles now?
And congratulations. We actually did it.
Congratulations, everyone.
What do we do next Monday?
Let's figure that
So,
out next Sunday.
Homework. Give us
yeah.
homework.
What's next Monday's assignment?
What we have, what I'm suggesting we do next, and this is what I put in the previous memo, is that we now move to looking at how the document's organized and what categories and sections all of these recommendations need to actually sit under. And do we want, things cross-reference, and how do we handle that guiding principle one, village character is kind of the overarching one. So I have gone through the table of contents, all the recommendations, the entire plan, and have some suggestions for how the document might be reorganized to accomplish those objectives that we've discussed. Previously, you talked about combining guiding principles 6 and 7, the built environment, places to live. So I've got some thoughts on that. So I've done that, and then when I went back and tried to make sure that all the recommendations and the sections were kind of sitting in the right seat, if you will, I went back and looked at the wording of the guiding principles that we discussed. So I have a draft table of contents, revised table of contents, and I have a new revised that of this based on what you have in here. So I'll need to update it after today, because if you deleted things today that aren't appropriate in here, then that'll be ready. So that's my proposal, is for next Monday, for us to look through this. We'll get it to you well in advance, probably, we'll get it to you well in advance, before probably Thursday. In the agenda packet, so I'll distribute it separately. But give you a chance to look through that, go through those. We'll talk about that, and then I also have put together some proposals for how to prioritize, categorize, and indicate cost ranges for all of these. So the three of us need to kind of chit chat on that first before we bring all that to you. But that's what I'd like for us to do next week. I would not recommend we go through and start putting priorities and scope of costs and things on here until you agree on a new reorganization. Because what I want to do is I want to agree on the reorganization, then I want to take the strategies that you've approved and I want to put them in the right spot, and I'll do that after you meet next Monday. Is that okay as a way forward?
That
Yeah,
sounds
and then
great.
do we come back for that meeting?
So you would have to
Okay.
probably have another meeting?
The following
If
Monday?
you want to do another
Yeah.
meeting the following
Yeah.
Monday?
I just didn't know if you needed more time to do that.
It'll take me
1
a
week
solid
interval or
week.
2 week interval?
It'll take me a solid week probably to get, but I can do it.
You just give us a schedule, or
Schedule, send us a book, a meeting
we'll work
invite.
it, yeah.
Okay.
Uh-oh, here comes homework. Looks like reading assignment here.
The light reading.
Darren's passing out a gift.
This guy's brilliant. This
Jeff
Andrew
Sanborn says
Samani here.
there'll be a test after
I'll read
the
anything
next
he
week.
writes.
Multiple choice, right, John?
But my father, who was a professor at the Naval Postgraduate School, got a nice little wall thing from one of his sections, and it was something like, MCPFFA, which stood for multiple choice, pray for partial credit.
You know, we throw a lot of terms at you in the comp plan in here. So a lot of the terms that we're putting into this comp plan are, they're put into action in this particular book. So, you know, form-based codes are in here, street walls, short setbacks, all things like that. They're in it. This is a really excellent book. One of the members of the Planning and Zoning Board turned us on to this book. I mean, form-based code. We talk a lot about character-based code. Form-based code is on here, 6.5, pocket parks, open space type. So it's a really excellent book just for having around for when we have these conversations.
Great, thank you, Darren.
This guy's brilliant. I got to serve with him on a committee, post-Katrina. Governor Andrews Dewani, he virtually
Wrote the book.
captured the room and took over that process. It was great.
The idea behind smart codes, so.
The smart code inventor, basically.
Yep. We
He
have
realized
that-
codes were destroying cities. So he said, you got to change them, so they don't. I mean, that's a summary, but he was
Happened that fast.
Yeah, well, he did that. His whole claim to fame is Seaside, down in Florida. Is that what it's called, Seaside? It's, and it basically is Pinehurst. The new community looks like Pinehurst. So that was his big idea, what we already had.
I think that was the idea, a new community.
Thank you, everyone. Are there any questions, or we happy with how this went?
Yes, very happy.
Static.
Thank you.
Hungry, though.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
We speed march through some of this stuff.
we did.